Good morning. Kemi Badenoch calls for a review to hate laws to protect free speech.
Yes, the Conservative Party leader is challenging the Prime Minister on non-crime hate incidents following the investigation into journalist Alison Pearson.
She's called it absolutely wrong for the police to visit any journalist's home simply because they had expressed an opinion.
While Boris Johnson has also attacked the government in what he calls a growing scrounge of thought police in the UK, comparing it to the Soviet Union at its worst.
The Prime Minister has doubled down on changes to inheritance tax on farmers, insisting that most will be unaffected and that the government just needs to keep explaining how it's going to work.
The Health Secretary has said he will improve safety for those choosing to go abroad for cosmetic surgeries in the wake of several deaths.
And Polish inmates being held in the UK prisons face being sent home to free up prison spaces as the Justice Minister, Lord Ponsonby, will sign a new memorandum of understanding with Poland.
Good morning. It's all over at the AT&T Stadium in Dallas, and Jake Paul has beaten Mike Tyson by unanimous decision in front of a global TV audience of around 50 million people. We'll have all the reaction later this hour.
Colder and more wintry weather is on the way for all of us as we head into next week. But what about the weekend? Well, many of us will see something we've not seen much of so far this November, a little bit of rain. Join me later for a full forecast and all the details.
Good morning, it's just gone 6 o'clock. I'm Ellie Costello.
And I'm Anne Diamond, and this is GB News Breakfast. OK, Aidan first. The match, is it a match? Fight.
I called it a match
finished.
earlier.
Did you?
It
Oh, dear.
It's a boxing match.
Yes.
It's a boxing match. It is. Yeah,
It's literally just finished.
Yeah, it finished. Just a few minutes ago. Unanimous decision for Jake Paul. 8 rounds of 2 minutes. And look, people were very snooty towards it beforehand. I don't think it was a great event in terms of what we saw in the ring. But in terms of the whole razzmatazz around it and all the stories and all the arguments and debates, I mean, it certainly intrigued me. 58-year-old man.
I was going to say, can you briefly explain the controversy? Yes.
Well, look,
one of them's 58, but the other guy, Jake Paul, is not what the boxing fraternity might consider a boxer.
One of them. No, he's not. I mean, look, he's not a very good boxer from a technical point of view.
Well, he just beaten Mike Tyson.
Yes, I know, but there was barely a punch thrown. I mean, look, it looked a little bit choreographed in places to me.
Okay.
I think he could have finished off Mike Tyson where he could. But just to briefly explain, as you requested there, Anne, yeah, he's come through a different kind of route. It's a little bit like, it's almost like Eddie the Eagle Edwards, but with considerably more success financially, and there's a queue of people wanting to fight him because they know. I mean, Mike Tyson was skint, and I think that's, I remember waking up when I was a kid one time and reading in the paper that he'd had a bad day, Mike Tyson, so he went out and bought 20 sports cars and parked them on his drive. That's how rich he was. He even considered giving up the sport once because he had too much money. That isn't the case anymore, but he's boosted his coffers now as a result of appearing in the ring. And as I say, he didn't have the footwork, he didn't have the mobility, he didn't land too many punches. He probably won about 2 rounds, I would suggest. But these are kind of exhibition matches. There's no route.
Well, and it got the audience. I mean, it got the audience.
Estimated 50 million. We probably won't know for a couple of days the exact figure. And so
you can't be too snooty about it, can you? I mean,
not really.
If he's making 50, how many million people?
I'd say they estimate around 50 million. Yeah.
Right, 50 million people switched on to watch it or bought tickets to go and see it, and that means that they're doing something right, doesn't it?
Well, I think people who would give them a fair hearing might say that you're bringing in a new generation of boxing fans. It doesn't always translate in various areas of television and elsewhere in recent years that young audience go on to follow the mainstream element of the sport. We haven't seen that necessarily follow. But others would say, well, look, it's a bit of a freak show. Is there anything else apart from money that would entice Mike Tyson into the ring at the age of 58?
That's the way it's going, isn't it, with boxing and with other sports? It's money. It's where the money goes.
It is, but boxing caused this problem, Ellie, because they couldn't get the big fights on for years. We're seeing a little bit of a change now with the Riyadh season in Saudi. They're putting the money up and getting the fights on, but we still haven't seen Tyson Fury against Anthony Joshua. We've wanted that for the last 7 or 8 years. And if they can't get the fights on, the vacuum will be filled by something else, even a YouTuber.
It's very interesting what you said about Tyson going out and buying 20 sports cars, just like that. Which
Oh,
you think
very
would
good
actually,
link.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you think buying 20 would actually devalue the novelty value somehow? I mean, how can you get excited over 20? But there's this lovely, lovely couple who've been interviewed in The Sun today, who won the lottery, the Euro Millions, a couple of years ago. They won £115 million.
Lovely.
But they seem to be the world's loveliest couple. And they, of course, all the journalists asked her, what's the first thing you bought with 115 million quid?
What is the first thing that she bought?
What would be the first thing you'd buy? First thing.
Chanel handbag, large, in caviar black leather.
Well, you
And
already got your eyes on it.
detailing. Yes?
Yeah.
What about you?
Oh, I don't know. I hadn't thought. But what this lady bought, because they'd been holed up in a hotel by the lottery people, because they had to be
protected.
They had to be protected, and then a bit of advice and all the rest of it, and coached through how to ring members of their family and tell their own family.
Gosh.
Because they were in a hotel, she said, I suddenly realised I hadn't got a clean pair of knickers. So the first thing she bought after winning 115 million is she went to M&S and bought.
I was about to say she went to M&S, didn't she?
News in briefs.
Yeah. Oh, very good. Yeah. But they seem to have done all the lovely things. She said they sat there with this lottery advisor and said, right, how do people normally tell their family? You know, how does it? Of course, once they told a couple of members of the family, like their daughters, it went round the family Facebook, and then it went, and then it got out, so they couldn't go home. So they were holed up in this hotel. The second thing they bought then was a £1.9 million house just up the road.
Fair enough, yeah.
Fair enough, absolutely.
A friend of mine, actually, a couple of years ago, got an unexpected inheritance gift of millions and millions of pounds, right? Yes, he did. It was totally unexpected. It was an email that came from Italy. And but he was so happy that he broadcast it everywhere. And you'd be amazed, this thing about people getting in touch.
Do that, yeah.
Getting in touch and they want donations for this, that and everything. And he had to kind of recall everything and going into hiding for a little while. Yeah, this thing about putting up in a hotel is not joke.
This couple did, in the end, what I think I'd like to do is they set up 2 charities, and they've been helping lots and lots of other people, homeless people and all the rest of it, in their area. They seem to have done an awful lot of good. They just come across as really nice, down-to-earth family.
And haven't they already given like 60 million away to their family?
Oh, yeah, already given 60 million to family and
You make
friends.
sure your friends will arrive,
Of course, yes.
I think so.
But
honestly,
which is why you'd have to draw up a list somewhere along the line.
well, Eddie's list is pretty,
Well, I
You've seen it
know
already,
the
haven't you?
handbag, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
I
a
think you
handbag
could
for
spend it in a
me.
week.
I will. This is the problem. I wouldn't be very good with the lottery. I'd give it all away and then I'd buy lots
They
of
don't
handbags.
even know they're winning numbers because they just do it online.
Oh, yes, it's,
at home. They didn't
Lucky
know
dip.
It's the second.
Well, it couldn't have happened to 2 better people, I
No,
don't think.
they
so
sound
kind,
They
so
sound lovely.
generous with it.
And they said when all of the reporters said to them, you know, that money's evil, money will spoil your lives. She said, no, honestly, if you're an idiot before you win the lottery, you're still an idiot after. So. Ergo, you know, if you've got a level head before you win the lottery, you've still got a level head afterwards. Yeah, they just sound a lovely couple.
Oh,
what would
that's
you
nice.
do? What would you do if you won the lottery? What's the first thing you'd buy?
115 million. Let us know what you think. And you have a think as well. The first thing you'd buy.
Yeah.
You need to think about that.
It would probably be as mundane as sort of thinking, oh, my goodness, I've got nothing to wear tomorrow. Yeah, one of those things, I don't know. Anyway, shall we move on to what's moving and shaking in the world of politics? Kemi Badenoch has urged the Prime Minister to review hate crime laws in efforts to protect free speech. And Boris Johnson today comparing them to the Soviet Union at its worst.
Well, the interventions follow a police investigation into the Telegraph journalist Alison Pearson.
Of course, you know by now, probably, she was accused of allegedly stirring up racial hatred with a social media post, which was a good year ago.
Yes, and then since deleted. And when those 2 police officers arrived on her door on Remembrance Sunday at 9:40 in the morning, they wouldn't tell her which post it was on X or who the complainant was, who her victim was.
Well, yeah, they said it's not an accuser, it's a victim.
It's a victim.
Which is sinister, isn't
All
it?
very interesting. Well, to discuss this, we're joined by Deputy Political Editor at The Mail on Sunday, Anna Mikalova. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you. And this is the row that just keeps on growing. What do you make of these interventions by Boris Johnson and Kemi Badenoch?
Well, I think they're both very good interventions. Obviously, Boris Johnson's intervention is in my newspaper and employer, so I would urge everyone to read that. But Boris has written his column with his typical turn of phrase. I think he's nailed it. I would go to say that all of this highlights the worst of human nature. It's this idea that you can anonymously report someone, face no consequences yourself. You know, we may never know who did this and why. And yet the police are taking it seriously, and that is
But somebody must
chilling.
have complained to the police.
Yeah.
I mean, you say we may never know why, but why are they protected?
Well, exactly. Because that could be a malicious complaint, particularly with someone like Alison Pearson, who is a very high-profile figure. She is a very high-profile columnist, and the whole nature of being a columnist is you have opinions that not everyone's going to agree with. You take a stand. You actually nail your colours to the mast. So, of course, people like that are going to be disliked vitriolically by some people. And the question is, as a society, do we set up systems that can encourage and protect those people? And that's the worrying thing. I mean, you know, I would also add to all of this that in COVID, if you remember, there was this period of everyone being encouraged to snoop on each other. And I think something has happened to the collective psyche where there are always people who will do this, and we all know some people who are like that. But I feel that after COVID, it almost becomes slightly encouraged. And then with social media being anonymous, again, it just gives that vehicle where previously, in places like the Soviet Union or Nazi Germany or, you know, dictatorships that thrive on setting people against each other effectively and making people live in fear, that was always at least you had to do it surreptitiously, and if people found out, it was, you know, pretty damaging for you personally. But here, you could never know who did this. There might be no consequences at all.
The most sinister thing to me is the image of opening the front door and a couple of policemen being there who are effectively accusing you of something but not telling you.
No detail.
No. And now...
On Remembrance Sunday.
On Remembrance Sunday. But Alison Pearson at least knows her stuff, and they didn't. But you can imagine anyone who didn't, who was frightened, putting up a bit of a fuss, and if the police said, you better come down to the station with us now, suddenly, I mean, effectively, that's almost like being arrested for nothing, police turning up at your door. Not knowing your rights would make you even more vulnerable. And you just wonder where this is going to end. And now we learn that there are situations where 12-year-old children have been saying things online, and we know that 12-year-old children can say some pretty unfortunate things, but they're saying things on social media whereby they've been interviewed in the same sort of way.
Yeah, I think the youngest person is a 9-year-old. I mean, this is so recent as well. I think this is in the last year, and those figures are coming out. When Alison Pearson first wrote her story, it looked sort of like an anomaly that, you know, they picked on the wrong person, and now it looks like actually lots and lots of normal people are getting this. People who do not have access to be able to write a newspaper front page story about it, and thank God, frankly, it's happened to Alison Pearson, because it gives a voice to all those cases.
And she's got the platform, hasn't she? Just briefly, because we are almost out of time with you, but what do you think should happen now with these non-crime hate incidents? Because there's been 13,000 or something that have been recorded with the police in the past year or so, and you can see why they would have been of importance when they were first thought up of, in terms of potentially stopping terror attacks and things like that, you know, checking on tweets and that sort of thing to spot the early signs of something like that. The PREVENT programme is very important. But when you're getting 9-year-old children being recorded down as a non-crime hate incident because they're calling their other classmates smelly, I mean, it's gone too far, has it not?
Absolutely. I mean, the first thing that should happen is, as Kemi Badenoch warns, the current government, in Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, need to review their plans to undo some of the mechanisms that were trying to stop this being used as much. So the Conservatives have been talking about this for a while. Obviously, there were a couple of, even pre-Alison Pearson, important cases that highlighted this already. And the government, the previous government, had said they were going to do something about it. Now, it's emerged that obviously they didn't do enough, nowhere near enough, but Yvette Cooper was going to undo the things they had done. So I think, number one, that needs to be stopped. And then I think the police, I mean, it's a common sense thing, Ellie. Like, yes, sometimes, of course, you need to give the police tools to fight terrorism, but none of these cases that we've seen are anything to do with terrorism. So there needs to be someone in the room with those police officers who will say, hang on, this makes absolutely no sense.
But it went through 3 different police forces already, and so that's 3 different areas where common sense didn't prevail and it went ahead. It just seems incredible, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We'll leave it there. We'll talk again in about an hour's time. Thanks very much indeed.
Well, let us know what you think about that story. You know you have an opinion. gbnews.com/yoursay.
6:15 already. Now, this winter, many people are going to struggle to pay for household bills and food, according to the latest research from Christians Against Poverty.
Well, an urgent appeal has been launched to provide families in poverty with emergency aid and help out of debt ahead of this Christmas. Well, our Yorkshire and Humber reporter Anna Riley has more.
Debt-ridden and in despair, Sam and Paul Helsby owed thousands of pounds last winter. Paul suffered from a stress-induced stroke, and the Barnsley couple lost their successful construction business. They couldn't pay their bills and had bailiffs knocking on their door just before Christmas.
I work with my hands and I just fix things. I'm a fixer. And having that taken away from me was just a kick for me, and it made things hard for us as a family, as a person. It felt like I'd lost my manhood, basically, that I'd lost everything that I'd worked so hard to get. How quickly you go from being OK to red. And I just didn't want to leave the house, didn't want to open the curtains, didn't want to do anything. Just wanted to sit and just curl up in a ball.
Christians Against Poverty provided emergency aid and free debt advice to Paul and Sam. It was a lifeline for the family, who are now debt-free.
We had got £2 left on the electric meter. Paul was getting more and more poorly. We were absolutely at our wits' end. To have even that little bit of breathing space from this fund just to help us with some food for a couple of weeks, to help us put gas and electric on just until we got the ball rolling and CAP helped us to sort our finances out, that was huge.
Debt coach Jonathan Tweedle supported Sam and Paul. He fears the number of families in poverty is rising.
Over half the families, individuals I meet, tell us that they've thought about taking their own lives. And because they're in such a low place, there is nothing worse when I've gone into homes and in midwinter and I can see my breath on, because it's so cold and there's families and children. And also I've even been in homes where the actual lights go out because the emergency credit's gone. So they shouldn't be like.
To help Brits who can't afford energy and food this winter, Christians Against Poverty have launched an urgent appeal. The charity hopes to raise £260,000 to provide emergency aid for those who need it most this Christmas. Anna Riley, GB News.
Right, what time is it? I just had a little time.
17 minutes past 6.
Thank you very much.
You did have a very important clock there.
Yeah, I think it's...
I was down there.
That's it. Sorry, lost it. Right, OK, let's have a look then at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom this morning.
And rail infrastructure workers have begun 24-hour strike today in a dispute over issues including working practices. The walkout by the RMT union began at 6 a.m. this morning, affecting infrastructure repairs and maintenance on the Elizabeth line in London, rather than hitting services.
The TV presenter Davina McCall is recovering now after undergoing brain surgery to remove a benign tumour. She revealed the news in an Instagram post saying she has a very rare cyst that affects only 3 in a million people. She added that the diagnosis was found quite by chance after booking in for a health scan, but she is doing well now.
Bratislava has been ranked the best destination for UK travellers seeking a bargain Christmas market break. The Slovakian capital was found to have the lowest prices for a 2-night package holiday for 2 people out of 14 European destinations.
And last night, it might still be with you, hovering up there before dawn breaks. It was the final chance to see a supermoon this year. It's called a beaver supermoon, and it's appeared brighter and larger overnight. But in many places, it was overcast, so you might not have been able to see it. Although I saw it this morning. Next time you will be able to catch a glimpse of one won't be until the 5th of November next year.
And a pregnant cow who became stuck in a residential swimming pool in Rutland has been hoisted to safety by firefighters. The team from Leicestershire Fire and Rescue Service drained the pool and then lifted her to safety using a downer cow harness, a piece of equipment designed to protect her udders. In a post on social media, a spokesperson joked that she had checked herself in for a spa day.
Well, swimming is very good for you when you're pregnant.
Oh, well, there you go.
Maybe she just fancied to take the weight off her legs.
She probably had the right idea, but then got a bit stuck.
Yes, yeah. Anyway, we were talking about the supermoon and whether or not you managed to see it last night. Let's find out what the weather is like today. Here's Alex Deakin.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. The weather's on the change. It's been a very dry November so far, but most of us will see some rain as we go through the next 24 hours and turning colder across northern Britain, very gusty across northern Scotland. Plenty of showers packing in here. Those showers will have some snow mixed in over the hills. A zone of wetter weather over northern England, dull and damp start here. That'll track slowly southwards, bringing some damp weather to Wales, the Midlands, eventually East Anglia and the southeast, although the far south probably staying dry until quite late on. Still quite mild here, but colder air is moving in, so although we'll see some sunny spells, it will feel colder, particularly when you add that wind on, which will be very lively across the Northern Isles, staying very blustery here through the afternoon and into the evening. More showers coming in here as well. Mostly of rain at lower levels, but some sleet and snow and hail thrown in for good measure. Certainly snow on the highlands of Scotland as the showers pack in here, but much of eastern and southern Scotland staying dry and bright, and the showers certainly further south at low levels will be of rain. This is the line of rain which will track its way south through the rest of today. Again, nothing too heavy, but because it has been so dry, it'll be the first rain many of us have seen for a while. It does scoot away down across the English Channel, and behind that the colder air seeps into all parts of the UK. Staying pretty gusty across the far northeast. Elsewhere the wind's a little lighter, and so tumbling temperatures. Pockets of frost certainly likely over northeast England, central and eastern Scotland, and further south temperatures well down into single figures. So a fresher, colder feel for many on Sunday, but a bright start for eastern England, southern England. Plenty of sunshine here. We are looking at wetter weather coming into Northern Ireland. More showers in northern Scotland with some snow on the hills. And as this wet weather comes in across southern Scotland, northern England, it could provide some snow on Sunday evening. There are Met Office warnings in place for wintry weather next week.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Still to come, we'll be hearing the latest challenges facing farmers over changes to inheritance tax. That's next.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Australian chef David Thompson is opening a new restaurant, Long Chim. The name, which translates roughly as come and try, already has locations in Sydney, Perth and Dubai, and previously operated in Melbourne and Singapore. It marks a return to London for Thompson, whose Belgravia haunt Naarm closed in 2012. But that earned him accolades, including, in 2002, the first Michelin star awarded to a Thai restaurant. So you've mentioned Bangkok there. What is your love for Thai food? Describe to us why you think Thai food is such a great cuisine.
It's endlessly complex and satisfying. It just resonates on the palate. For me, as a cook, it offers a challenge. And the way that you cook it is you chase taste. You don't follow a recipe, you follow your sense of taste. And so with all these dishes that you'll taste today, but also in the restaurant that we're opening, it's all about a sequence of taste and seasoning that has some balance.
What is this dish?
This is something called gengari gung, which is an aromatic curry of prawns.
Lovely looking prawns, yes.
They're not too bad. And it's with something strange called water bamboo, which we found up in Chinatown just the other day. And it's a perfect accompaniment. I'll just take a little.
Yes. Describe that perfect accompaniment to me again.
Water bamboo.
What is it? Water bamboo, yeah.
And you would not know of it, because I didn't know of it that much either. And it tastes like a little bit of like young coconut meat. So it's perfect with these prawns and this curry. And what you need to have with this curry, because this is the way that Thai food works, an interplay of flavours, this little cucumber salad on the side, and that helps to bring out the spice.
Yes.
And the sweetness and the savoury quality.
I must say, all of this looks so lovely.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, I'm sure, as you know, especially if you've been watching us recently, because we've been talking about it a lot, farmers. Farmers right across the country are now preparing to descend on London this Tuesday in protest at the government's changes to inheritance tax.
Yes, well, those changes mean that farms worth over £1 million will be hit with 20% inheritance tax, sparking fears that many small farmers' livelihoods could become financially inviable.
Well, to tell us more about this and how she feels about it, we're delighted to be joined by the CEO of St Hugh Free Range Eggs, and that's Rebecca Tonks. Good morning, Rebecca. Thanks for joining us. Rachel Reeves says she doesn't get the complaints and that we'll all get over this if we could just calm down about it in time. What do you think?
Sadly, that's not the case, and this new or proposed policy is just incredibly damaging for our farmers, and I can't quite understand how she's come to that conclusion.
How will it affect you?
So our business is constructed of amazing family farms. We've got 52 family farms who pride themselves in incredible welfare and quality of produce, and it'll affect every single one of them. So it doesn't make sense. There's many DEFRA stats out there, their own information, which they could have pulled on as a source of research to see the impacts, and it doesn't appear they've looked at their own numbers.
So you're CEO, and by the sound of it, you've got various other farms which are producing eggs, and you're an umbrella sort of organisation. So that means some of those farmers aren't as big as it sounds, probably are family farmers as well, and will be affected by the inheritance nature of this.
That's correct. Yes, every one of our farms is a family farm. They're mixed farmers. They'll have sheep, cattle, as well as poultry, and they work 365 days of the year, 24 hours a day, and you think, well, these guys they don't have a spare cash in the bank to suddenly pay off inheritance tax to pass it on to the next generation. And what would be lost here is it's that core the family passing down information of how to run farms, how to run their particular farm. Each farm is different around the UK, from the type of soil you're farming and what type of farming is successful in that area, the kind of weather impacts in that area. Each farm has its own kind of it's very unique, and so one size fits all is not going to work here, and therefore eradicating small family farms is a really, really dangerous thing to do. It's taking out a lot of knowledge, a lot of education, and actually trying to get into the farming sector as a young person is jolly hard. And so taking away the option to be able to own a smaller sized farm, it's encouraging, very large scale farming, which it's very difficult to get youngsters into at that sort of level.
Will you be going to the protest on Tuesday? And are you getting a sense from other farmers that you're speaking to that they'll be going to this protest in London on Tuesday?
Yes, I'm definitely heading up to the rally, and many people are. So yes, and I think it's very important that we need to show our support to our British farmers who work incredibly hard. We have one of the highest welfare and quality of food standards in the world, and we need to protect that, and we need to support our farming. Our food security is incredibly important, and the sustainability of that is at risk right now. And I can't I can't labour that enough. That if we don't have our own food source in the UK, we are at risk of imported food. We don't know where it's come from. We don't know the welfare or what kind of usage of antibiotics, for instance, has been used there. We're at risk of imported food being, risk of warfare. That's going to slow imports, and then the impact on the environment. There are so many other risk factors of importing food when we could produce it ourselves, and why would we damage that? I don't understand it.
Okay, Rebecca Tonks, good to speak to you this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'm sure those farmers value eggs far too much to be throwing them, but I can imagine they feel angry enough to.
Well, there's talk of slurry tankers being used on Tuesday, and also rumours of tractors being brought down to London.
I wonder if they will.
Whether that actually happens, that remains to be seen, but it would be a bit like the French, wouldn't it? We've seen it with the French. Dirty protests, as they're called.
Yeah.
And tractors descending on town squares. I mean, it's been done in the Netherlands as well. So farmers are angry out there, and they feel as though they're not being listened to. So there certainly are going to be a lot of people in London on Tuesday.
Well, at GB News, as you know, we love to hear what you think, and every day we run our poll of the day. So here's one. Do you agree with Rachel Reeves that her plan is a fair deal for farmers, especially after listening to that interview? We'll be bringing you the live results throughout the day, so make sure you stay tuned, and the final result will be announced later in Nana Akwia's show.
Yes, and for all the latest polls, news and how to vote, just go to gbnews.com/poll.
Now, it's the final week of our Christmas giveaway, and we're on the countdown to the big day. Gosh, Christmas is getting nearer. You could win an awful lot of money in tax-free cash and shopping vouchers and a GB News Christmas goodie bag full of stuff. But you've got to hurry because time is running out. Here's how you can take part and hopefully win.
Good luck indeed. Still to come, Ada McGee's going to be going through the Mike Tyson-Jake Paul boxing match. That's next.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Absolutely. Right, it's time for sport. And there is some news, apparently.
Yes.
There's been something going on.
Yeah. What is it?
It's Dallas. It's in Dallas at the AT&T Stadium, home of the Dallas Cowboys. It was Jake Paul against Mike Tyson. We got underway with the ring walks at about 4:20 this morning, our time, I think it was. And the huge razzmatazz. Everyone was waiting to see Mike Tyson. They've not seen him in the ring properly in a top fight like this since, 2005, I think.
Wow, because he's 58 now.
58 years, yeah, against 27-year-old Jake Paul. Jake Paul has come through the kind of the YouTuber ranks as far back as 2013. He was putting his excerpts on Vine. Do you remember Vine?
Yeah.
And it was wound up in the end, but he was getting huge numbers back then, 5-6 million people, and then he just kind of continued and snowballed until. He's not really part of a boxing framework. I mean, it is recognised as a professional fight, this. It will show on both their records. In fact, it already is showing on their records. But he was somebody who just develops an audience or just works on it, and he does his one-off exhibitions, and the opportunity to fight Mike Tyson came up.
Who did that opportunity come from? Presumably somebody's agent.
Jake Paul makes the offer. He manages himself pretty much. I mean, he's got people working for him, but a very, very smart guy. Absolutely. You can't say anything other than that, to be honest with you. But Tyson, the opportunity came up, and obviously, Ellie, you're pretty too young to remember how good Mike Tyson was. I mean, the day he lost, which was February the 11th, 1990, got beaten by a bum by the name of James Buster Douglas, who wasn't expected to beat him. When he beat Mike Tyson, do you remember this, Anne, when Mike Tyson lost for the first time, it just shook the world. And it was an overnight thing. And I remember waking up in the morning and Tyson was beaten, but he was a ferocious competitor, 5'8", a small heavyweight, but he just used to knock out everybody in his path. He was known as the baddest man on the planet, Iron Mike. I remember that he had such wealth that he once bought 20 sports cars and parked them on his drive just because he'd had a bit of a bad day. He had a bad day. I don't know if
Cheers. Oh, retail therapy, absolutely.
Yeah, I know. We all believe in a bit of that, don't we? But anyway, the fight happened today. It was a bit pedestrian. Some people are saying it was.
I mean, you and I were looking at it before, and there wasn't much going on there. It was just a bit.
It's a bit sluggish.
Do you think it looked choreographed? Because I did a little bit. I thought patches of it. I think they could have hurt each other a bit more. I think that's what the paying public wanted to see. 50 million people were there.
It wouldn't have been choreographed, would it?
I don't know, there was some whispers of it yesterday.
There were a little bits. I mean, look, Tyson. The first thing to go is your footwork when you get to that age, or when you're advancing years. I mean, we are seeing heavyweights going on until their early 40s now. But the footwork wasn't there. The mobility
when you
wasn't
used to watch Muhammad Ali, he was dancing right through all of the rounds.
Yes, exactly.
There wasn't any of that.
Well, a fighter in any weights any level would get in trouble. The first thing that goes in the ring
are your legs.
Your legs go, and it's a bit jelly-like, and then you lose your mobility, and suddenly the rest of your body is vulnerable, especially if you're, because it affects your coordination and everything. But he was very slow. Jake Paul is not a good boxer, it has to be said, and. Some would say, look, he went the distance. I think Mike Tyson can be proud of that. He didn't get hurt, but I think he looked gassed after about 2 rounds. I think he probably won 2 out of 6.
So when there is no obvious knockout,
yes,
it's decided on points.
Yes, you have judges scoring independently on the side.
So it's like accurate punches.
Yeah, typically the area is this. So if you look at the camera here, there. And there, anything outside of that.
If you land a good punch,
yeah, if you hit on the underside of the arm, for example, I mean, it's not illegal, but you won't get a point for it. So that's roughly how it works. It's a difficult thing to do. That's why you have three judges, because we've had situations. I mean, there was a fight earlier on today, Katie Taylor on the same bill against Amanda Serrano. She won unanimously, even though plenty of people in the ring, or sorry, not in the ring, but outside the ring, thought that Serrano won the fight. So that's how subjective it can be, and it's been a source of huge controversy there. If you go to certain states in America, they'll favour certain fighters. You can't prove it, of course, but it's not the same as football or rugby, where you get points and goals deciding the outcome.
So Jake Paul won.
Jake Paul won.
Yeah.
Yes,
what about the money, briefly, Aidan Swivel?
Yeah. Well, this is extraordinary as well. $40 million for Jake Paul. That equates to £31.1 million, and $20 million to Mike Tyson, £15.4 million. So that should keep the bailiffs on the door. That's for sure.
Well, that softens the blow for Mike Tyson, doesn't it? £15 million. You
can go out and buy a couple more sports cars.
Softens the blow like that.
Yeah, very good.
Oh, very
Pardon
good.
the pun,
yes. OK, for the moment, Aidan, thanks very much indeed. Do stay with us. We're going to be going through the newspapers next.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
A Tesco store on a Scottish island has defied locals by ignoring pleas to stay closed on Sundays.
Tesco's has said that no member of staff in Stornoway would be forced to work on a Sunday, and that it had received a significant amount of positive reaction to its plans.
Well, let's talk now to the Minister of the Reformed Presbyterian Church, Reverend Kenneth Stewart. Good morning to you, Reverend Stewart. You're trying to keep Sunday special, and if Tesco are going to open up, that means it won't be quite as special for you.
Well, yes, good morning, and thanks for having me on. Yes, Tesco, for some reason, they claim it's not economic advantage, but for some reason they've decided to go against hundreds of years of tradition on this island and the deeply held religious convictions of many, many people, including, of course, their own customers who are really grieved by this decision. We come obviously from the standpoint that a day of rest is effectively mandatory. It's a human right, along with the other 10 commandments which have undergirded our moral and legal fabric in society. It actually enshrines the human right to a day of rest. And of course, in the UK, that's been eroded for many, many years. Incidentally, it's still far more respected on the continent. But for us here, the Sabbath or the day of rest has been very, very important. It's not just what we do, it's who we are. And for some reason, Tesco have decided just to go against that.
Reverend Stewart, we were actually talking about this earlier, how in European countries, I mean, even in France, which is a secular country, still very few shops will open on a Sunday.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
time for the papers. Stephanie Tetchy and Kevin Schofield are with us. So let's get stuck in. What should we get stuck into first?
Well, Kevin, I think we need to talk about thought police in Starmer's Britain, according to Boris Johnson.
In the Mail.
Yeah, so, I mean, this has become a big issue this week, obviously as a result of Alison Pearson at the Telegraph getting arrested over a tweet.
Well, she wasn't actually arrested.
No, so not arrested, sorry, but the police turned up at her door.
Police came to her door.
For a tweet that she hasn't been told what it is, and we still don't know. Now, there's some speculation in one or two of the papers this morning as to what it was about, but it's brought to light this whole issue of non-crime hate incidents. Now, there was another story in the front of the Times a couple of days ago about a 9-year-old kid being investigated by the police because of a rude word that he said about another child in the playground. There was another couple of young girls at school were, again, likewise investigated by the police. And now, these non-crime hate incidents, I think they do serve a purpose up to a point. You know, they help to police to collect data on offensive behaviour if people are acting in a racist way, for instance. Yeah. However, there is a danger, I think, that the police go too far the other way. Now, I was checking online earlier, actually, and Suella Braverman, when she was the Home Secretary, she said to the police, look, yeah, these things are useful, but for heaven's sake, don't use it to infringe free speech. Yeah. Don't go over the top. But it seems as though it's tipped too far that way.
And especially when it's deemed to be a waste of police time and precious police resources as well. I mean, when we're policing what children are saying to each other in the playground, I mean, surely that's gone too far.
I think it has gone too far, and I think it sets a dangerous precedent for the future, because I think to myself, like, how do you judge what is potentially criminal? If this is now becoming a big thing, then you're going to have to warn all of us what we can't and can say. And I think the problem here is that it's quite scary, because I think to myself, how far is this going to go? It's almost, I feel like it's an extreme measure here. Like, freedom of speech, the whole reason why it's got freedom in there is because we're free to think and we should be free to communicate. So I think it's quite sad, a sad state of affairs of where we've got to as a society.
It's frightening as well, as Alison Pearson said in her article, that when you open the door, you're still in your nightgown. She was in her dressing gown. Sunday morning, actually Remembrance Sunday morning, she opens the door and there are two policemen standing there. That immediately puts a chill down your back then, doesn't it? It's either somebody in your family has died or been hurt terribly, or something dreadful's happened. And actually, they couldn't even tell her who her accuser was, and they said not accuser, victim. I mean, the terminology is terrifying.
It is odd. I mean, I'm instinctively against police turning up at journalists' doors anyway. You know, but the Times actually are also, I've got a story on it today, talking about doctors, vicars and social workers are among those who have been investigated. And the doctor apparently was investigated for allegedly misdiagnosing a patient.
Yeah.
So how, I mean, surely that's... Obviously, you want the doctors not to misdiagnose you, but
it's not a police matter at that stage, is it?
It is a waste of police resources. If you think of how much crime there is in this country, but yet the police are bang on it to turn up at your door for something you might have tweeted.
Well, if you're the victim of theft, especially in London, if your car's stolen off the drive, your phone's stolen, you will not have two police officers show up.
No, that's right.
Ever.
That's true,
And anyway, the sheer fact that the term is non-criminal, it's not a crime, then why are the police there at all?
Yeah, and it also suggests that does that mean that crime has been sorted? You know, we've dealt with crime, now we're moving on to non-crime.
Now we're on to hate
exactly.
incidents.
There are no other troublesome incidents in that area. I don't think so. Anyway, there we go.
Steph, should we have a look at our addiction to junk food?
Yes.
Costing us a fortune, isn't it?
It is costing us $268 billion a year. A new study by the Food Farming Countryside Commission have revealed what we're eating on our plate is having a really damage effect on the NHS to the sum of £67.5 million. When it comes to social care, it's £14.6 billion. And when it comes to welfare, it's £10.1 billion, because what we're eating. Obviously, well, not all of us, but some people are consuming a diet which is high in fat, salt and sugar, which is coming with complications such as diabetes, heart problems and kidney disease. But I just think, I remember when I was younger, it was so easy to go to the fish and chip shop, get $1.99, fast food, greasy food. And I think from a very young age, teenagers are consuming this kind of fatty junk food diet, and it just stays with them for the rest of their lives. And I think now where people are trying to, you know, tighten their purse strings, people are going for cheap food. I think it actually is more expensive to eat organically, and I think this is the problem here. And obviously knowledge is power, and I think people need to be taught how to be eating more healthy. People
and if you don't, you get 2 policemen at your front door.
It's coming, Anne.
I'm sorry, I have reports that you haven't eaten any broccoli this week.
It's coming, it's coming. And people do like junk food. McDonald's, Burger King, there are other places available, but, you know, it's just one of those things now. Junk food is embedded in our society, but people do not correlate the two between how it actually affects your health in the long run.
No, absolutely. And when you think of Jamie Oliver, for instance, I mean, he's
tried so
for
hard.
years to get people off, you know, junk food. With programmes about 15-minute meals and like encouraging folk to cook and use fresh natural ingredients, which actually are cheaper, you know, in the long run than. You know,
but you have to work at it. Talking of food and drink, tell us about the Diwali party at number 10. Apparently, it's Partygate all over again, in a slightly different way.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was the end of last month in number 10. Keir Starmer hosted an event to mark Diwali, and there was a lot of people there. But on the menu, was meat and alcohol, which now, while in the Hindu faith they're not prohibited, lots of Hindus choose not to eat meat and not to drink alcohol. So this was deemed to be offensive. Some people complained, including a Conservative MP for Leicester East, wrote a letter to the Prime Minister saying this was a bad misstep, make sure it doesn't happen again. And yesterday, the Prime Minister's spokeswoman came out and apologised and said that this was an oversight and it will not happen again. So, yeah, it's red faces all round in number 10.
Steph, let's have a look at what I actually think is a genius hire at the Sun newspaper.
Yeah, it's nil to Becky Vardy at the moment. Just when you thought you've had enough of the Wagatha drama, the Wagatha Christie dramas, when it comes to Becky Vardy and Colleen Rooney, she is tomorrow Colleen Rooney's making her debut in I'm a Celebrity tomorrow. And it should be all eyes on her, but no, Becky Vardy has now become I'm a Celebrity columnist for The Sun, where she will be giving her £2 worth.
She's going to specifically talk about I'm a Celebrity.
Yes, specifically talk about Colleen Rooney. And in her first piece, she said she's looking forward to Colleen eating a lot of private parts, which I won't mention, different animal private parts. She says, you know what, the reason why she's doing this is because she feels like Colleen hasn't given up since their court case. You know, she says there's been a book, there's been a documentary, now she's on I'm Celebrity. She's like, what's next? Dancing on Ice. And I feel like Rebecca, she feels like she needs to be educated. She says the public are trying to make Colleen look like she's some hero, but they're forgetting about the abuse I went through, even though Rebecca Vardy was the one that took it to the courts in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
She's the one who took it to court, and because I was there covering the trial at the time, Colleen Rooney stood up in the box at the time and said to the judge, I don't even want to be here. The whole thing put to bed.
Who is the more impressive?
The one who struck me the most in the court case was Colleen Rooney, which was really classy.
And apparently she is. She's
lovely.
Yeah, no, she is. Yeah, she's a very impressive woman, and she's no mug. That's for sure. But the thing is, as well, it'll be worth reading because the Sun, for their money, will have said, "We want you to dish the dirt here."
Oh, she will, absolutely. Well, we'll be watching out for that, won't we? Stephanie and Kevin, thank you so much. See you again in a few moments.
Let's have a look at the weather.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News.
The weather's on the change. It's been a very dry November so far, but most of us will see some rain as we go through the next 24 hours and turning colder across northern Britain, very gusty across northern Scotland. Plenty of showers packing in here. Those showers will have some snow mixed in over the hills. A zone of wetter weather over northern England, dull and damp start here. That'll track slowly southwards, bringing some damp weather to Wales, the Midlands, eventually East Anglia and the southeast, although the far south probably staying dry until quite late on. Still quite mild here, but colder air is moving in, so although we'll see some sunny spells, it will feel colder, particularly when you add that wind on, which will be very lively across the Northern Isles, staying very blustery here through the afternoon and into the evening. More showers coming in here as well. Mostly of rain at lower levels, but some sleet and snow and hail thrown in for good measure. Certainly snow on the highlands of Scotland as the showers pack in here, but much of eastern and southern Scotland staying dry and bright, and the showers certainly further south at low levels will be of rain. This is the line of rain which will track its way south through the rest of today. Again, nothing too heavy, but because it has been so dry, it'll be the first rain many of us have seen for a while. It does scoot away down across the English Channel, and behind that the colder air seeps into all parts of the UK. Staying pretty gusty across the far northeast. Elsewhere the wind's a little lighter, and so tumbling temperatures. Pockets of frost certainly likely over northeast England, central and eastern Scotland, and further south temperatures well down into single figures. So a fresher, colder feel for many on Sunday, but a bright start for eastern England, southern England. Plenty of sunshine here. We are looking at wetter weather coming into Northern Ireland. More showers in northern Scotland with some snow on the hills. And as this wet weather comes in across southern Scotland, northern England, it could provide some snow on Sunday evening. There are Met Office warnings in place for wintry weather next week.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
This is the Fun Demand. Good luck.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
If you want your news to be straight talking... This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
A very good morning to you.
Jamie Oliver
Saturday
has been branded patronising.
Indeed, yes. And what time is it? 7 o'clock already. Kemi Badenoch is calling for a review to hate laws to protect free speech.
Yes, the Conservative Party leader is challenging the Prime Minister on non-crime hate incidents following the investigation into the journalist Alison Pearson.
Yeah, she's called it absolutely wrong for the police to visit any journalist's home like that, simply because they had expressed an opinion.
Boris Johnson has also attacked the government in what he calls a growing scourge of thought police in the UK, comparing it to the Soviet Union at its worst.
The Prime Minister has doubled down on changes to inheritance tax on farmers, insisting that most will be unaffected and that the government just needs to keep explaining how it's going to work.
The Health Secretary said he will improve safety for those choosing to go abroad for cosmetic surgeries in the wake of several deaths.
And as Polish inmates being held in the UK prisons face being sent home to free up prison spaces, we're asking, should we be deporting foreign criminals?
It's been branded a farce and a freak show, but it's all over in Dallas, and Jake Paul has beaten Mike Tyson by a unanimous decision in front of a global TV audience of around 50 million people. We'll have all the reaction later this hour.
Colder and more wintry weather is on the way for all of us as we head into next week. But what about the weekend? Well, many of us will see something we've not seen much of so far this November, a little bit of rain. Join me later for a full forecast and all the details.
It's just gone 7 o'clock. I'm Ellie Costello.
And I'm Anne Diamond, and this is GB News Breakfast.
We've been talking about the lottery this morning because Anne was telling us about this lovely couple, nicest people probably to have ever won the lottery, who won 115 million.
115 million.
Gave away 60 to their friends and their family.
Friends and family. Set up 2 charities that helps other people, and those are ongoing. And various things like that. They sound as though they've got their head screwed on.
Yeah.
I was asking, the journalists all asked her, what's the first thing you bought once you knew you were a multi-millionaire? And it turned out to be a packet of 3 knickers from Marks and Spencer's, because they were holed up, because the whole family got to know, and then the friends got to know, and then everybody got to know that they'd been the big winners. So under the advice of the lottery people, they went to stay in a hotel, so nobody knew where they were. And she suddenly realised she hadn't got any clothes with her. So, yeah, she popped down to M&S for some knickers.
Yeah.
As you would.
As you do.
Yeah.
But it led us to ask the question, what would you do if you won £115 million in the lottery? What was the first thing you'd buy? Jeffrey's been in touch saying, I would buy a new car and then I'd invest the rest. Jeffrey, we need to know which car. And Martin says, if I won that sort of money, first thing I would do is disappear into Yellowstone National Park for a few months. I just need some peace and quiet.
Yeah, you really would.
That's actually a very good idea.
Yeah. But we heard what your first purchase would be.
Yeah, we looked it up, didn't we? It's £10,000.
Yeah, it's £10,000.
You still have a few quid left, Ellie.
I would have a few pennies left, so I think I deserve that. And you've had a think now, haven't you? What you'd
Well,
buy?
I've got my eyes on a house in Cyprus. I'm really fancy.
Nice holiday home.
Yeah.
I think it's a very good idea. Aidan?
A massive central London pad.
Oh.
Worth around roughly about £15 million. That'd suit me for next
Yeah, with
years,
one of those massive views over the Thames or something.
Yeah, I want parking as well. I don't want to have to pay for parking.
Oh, you'd have to... No, what you do is you park underneath, and then you get the lift up from the... which is only operated by your key.
Yes.
Goes to the very top. And again, only operated by your key. You've got the whole of the top.
Sound like you've been there, Anne.
And you're across the details. You've got it all planned out.
Flat is that.
Is it really?
It's literally that, yeah. You go, you park underneath, in your exclusive lift, up it goes,
Never
only
been,
to your floor, out, and then you're in the house. Oh, it's just beautiful.
Oh,
What
how the
about
other half
what about
live.
security as well? I need security.
Yeah, you'd have to have
Get the
security.
riff-raff out. Yeah.
You're thinking very practically, Aidan.
Yes, I know.
You see,
I know.
that's the only thing I was thinking of. This couple, the second thing they bought was a £1.9 million home in their area where they live.
I love that, because they didn't even spend lots and lots.
But the minute you buy
I
a
know
great
it's a lot,
big...
but not out of 115
But the minute you buy a £2 million home, you are also buying grounds that go with it, the building that needs maintaining. In other words, you are taking on a lot, actually. You have to have a staff to look after. You really do. You have to have a staff to look after things like that. So suddenly, instead of just never worrying about money, you're suddenly into a world where you have responsibilities that are even bigger.
I do feel like those are nice problems to have.
I'd be a good neighbour as well.
Having the garden to look after.
Yeah, you'd get one of those management-type people, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you probably would. Although my
estate manager.
My neighbours in three apartments in my block. My neighbours have both got their place up for sale now, so I'm wondering if I'm maybe the problem here.
Sounds nice.
Maybe. We've also been talking about free speech, this growing row over Alison Pearson, who had 2 police officers arrive on her door on Remembrance Sunday, actually, 9:40 in the morning, to talk to her about a tweet that she posted and then deleted over 12 months ago. She doesn't know what that tweet said. They didn't give her any detail or who the complainant was. But it's got lots of us talking this morning. JM's been in touch saying, I don't understand how any normal person can remotely become frightened by a tweet that someone might have written.
It depends what it said, but we don't know.
And Ian says the Conservatives can say what they want. However, they're the ones that brought in these laws. Everything Labour are doing now is what the Conservatives laid the groundwork for. And Michelle says, good morning, Anne and Ellie. It's disgusting what happened to Alison Pearson and others in the name of hate crime. I find it ironic that the police went to Alison's house on Remembrance Sunday when we honour our brave heroes who fought for our freedoms, including free speech.
Yes.
Very good point, Michelle. Well made. Thank you very much. Do keep them coming in. gbnews.com/yoursay.
Well, Kemi Badenoch has urged the Prime Minister now to review hate crime laws in efforts to protect free speech. Boris Johnson's written a huge article in the Mail today comparing our country now to the Soviet Union at its worst.
Yes, the interventions followed that police investigation into the Telegraph journalist Alison Pearson.
She was accused... Well, they said... Well, she was accused, I suppose, of allegedly stirring up racial hatred with a social media post that went right back to last November, apparently.
Well, to discuss this, we're joined by the Deputy Political Editor at The Mail on Sunday, Anna Mikalova. Good to see you again.
Morning.
Anna. And what do you make of these interventions by Kemi Badenoch and by Boris Johnson?
Well, I think they're spot on. I think we also had to mention Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, agreeing that some of these things are complete nonsense, like when school children are being reported, 9-year-old primary school children are being reported to the police, and the police actually looking into it. There's a similar story in the Times about doctors, vicars. A lot of people are getting dragged into this. But I think Boris is completely right. You know, this idea that it's absolutely chilling that the police would even come to a journalist's door, and you really would hope that Britain, which is the home of Speaker's Corner, it would not be that country. And yet it seems like the ability to be anonymous online, to report things anonymously, and then this ridiculous situation where the police completely ignore so much actual crime. So fraud, for example, they pretty much openly say we don't investigate it, even though
burglary.
It's the
you ring up and say, I think I've been burgled, and they don't send anyone round.
Burglary, someone smashes your window, the issue of police and CCTV. So on the one hand, we're one of the most watched societies because everyone's got CCTV, you know, there's CCTV everywhere. You can find footage, and then you have people, victims of crimes, real crimes, physical crimes, who present the police with CCTV, and then the police respond with, oh, we don't have the capacity to look into this. Never mind actually investigate it themselves. So focusing on this, Alison Pearson and the teachers and the school kids is an absolute nonsense.
Didn't Labour bring this upon themselves with their reaction to the rioting? It was rioting, wasn't it? That happened after those 3 little girls were so savagely killed. He said, you know, anyone putting out tweets, or was it after that event, or it was one of the other, but basically it was a few months ago when things seemed to be getting out of hand because of things people had tweeted and said and incited, or perhaps not, others to violence. And he said, we will find you and we will bung you in jail, and that's what has happened. Haven't they then brought this sort of fiasco upon themselves? It seems to be getting worse. Our police are now sort of policing what we're saying and thinking.
Well, I think you're probably right that if you try and understand where the police is actually coming from, they are probably getting mixed signals from the top. I mean, Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves has obviously spoken against some of this, but Keir Starmer has so far defended the police and not said anything about changing these laws. In fact, the current plans are for Yvette Cooper to try and strengthen the police's power to do this and unwind some of the things that Conservatives had been trying to do. And I think, as one of your viewers pointed out, the Conservative government talked a lot about taking away these powers and did nothing to stop it, it appears, or nothing effective. But I think, you know, what needs to be done, really, is a common-sense approach. I think we spoke earlier about the fact that, of course, there are situations where there are terrorists use social media, that's well documented, to both recruit and to spread their message. Then, after Stockport, of course, when you have a situation where there is a risk of rioting and riots actually happening, you do need to look at social media. But something like Alison Pearson's tweet, whatever it was, from a year ago, the actual argument that it was inciting something a year ago well, then you say to the police, why have you taken a year to even look into it? Because if it was genuinely inciting, if you sort of follow that thread, then they're a bit slow to respond.
Well, look, some of our viewers are pointing out, what about David Lammy's tweet about Trump saying he was a Nazi?
Yeah. Or Dawn Butler.
Yeah.
Talking about white supremacist in blackface, talking about Kemi Badenoch.
You'd have thought that would be worth a knock on the door, wouldn't you?
You would think, yeah. I mean, where's the line? There does seem to be confusion in the ranks, especially with the police, as to what actually constitutes a non-crime hate incident. But Anna Mikhailova, we're out of time with you, I'm afraid. But good to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed.
Yes, it's 11 minutes past 7 already. Now, this winter, many people are going to really struggle to pay their household bills and food, according to the latest research from Christians Against Poverty.
Yes, an urgent appeal has been launched to provide families in poverty with emergency aid and help them to get out of debt ahead of this Christmas. Well, our Yorkshire and Humber reporter Anna Riley has the details.
Debt-ridden and in despair, Sam and Paul Helsby owed thousands of pounds last winter. Paul suffered from a stress-induced stroke, and the Barnsley couple lost their successful construction business. They couldn't pay their bills and had bailiffs knocking on their door just before Christmas.
I work with my hands and I just fix things. I'm a fixer. And having that taken away from me was just a kick for me, and it made things hard for us as a family, as a person. It felt like I'd lost my manhood, basically, that I'd lost everything that I'd worked so hard to get. How quickly you go from being OK to red. And I just didn't want to leave the house, didn't want to open the curtains, didn't want to do anything. Just wanted to sit and just curl up in a ball.
Christians Against Poverty provided emergency aid and free debt advice to Paul and Sam. It was a lifeline for the family, who are now debt-free.
We had got £2 left on the electric meter. Paul was getting more and more poorly. We were absolutely at our wits' end. To have even that little bit of breathing space from this fund just to help us with some food for a couple of weeks, to help us put gas and electric on just until we got the ball rolling and CAP helped us to sort our finances out. That was huge.
Debt coach Jonathan Tweedle supported Sam and Paul. He fears the number of families in poverty is rising.
Over half the families, individuals I meet, tell us that they've thought about taking their own lives. And because they're in such a low place, there is nothing worse when I've gone into homes and in midwinter and I can see my breath on, because it's so cold and there's families and children. And also I've even been in homes where the actual lights go out because the emergency credits, it's gone. So they shouldn't be like.
To help Brits who can't afford energy and food this winter, Christians Against Poverty have launched an urgent appeal. The charity hopes to raise £260,000 to provide emergency aid for those who need it most this Christmas. Anna Riley, GB News.
Well, let's have a look now at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom this morning.
Rail infrastructure workers have begun a 24-hour strike today in a dispute over issues including working practices. The walkout by the RMT union began at 6 a.m. this morning, affecting repairs and maintenance on the Elizabeth Underground line, rather than hitting services.
The TV presenter Davina McCall is recovering after undergoing brain surgery to remove a benign tumour. She revealed the news in an Instagram post, saying she has a very rare cyst that affects only 3 in a million people. She added that the diagnosis was found quite by chance after she booked in for a health scan.
Bratislava has been ranked the best destination for UK travellers seeking a bargain Christmas market break. The Slovakian capital was found to have the lowest prices for a 2-night package holiday for 2 people out of 14 European destinations.
And last night was the final chance to see a supermoon this year. It's called a beaver supermoon, and it appeared brighter and larger overnight. But in some cases, it was a bit too overcast to see it, which was a shame. But as you can see from what we're showing on the television right now, it did look fantastic in some places. Anyway, you're going to have to wait quite a long time to have another chance of seeing one, not until the 5th of November next year.
And a pregnant cow who became stuck in a residential swimming pool in Rutland has been hoisted to safety by firefighters. The team from Leicestershire Fire and Rescue Service drained the pool and then lifted her to safety using a downer cow harness, a piece of equipment designed to protect her udders. In a post on social media, a spokesperson joked that she had checked herself in for a spa day.
That's interesting about Bratislava being very popular for Christmas markets.
I have never been.
I
But it looks
love a
beautiful.
Christmas market, though, don't
You like a Christmas
Oh,
market?
yeah. I end up buying all the stuff I want to buy for myself because the sort of things that attract me. And you get a lot of arty, crafty things.
Oh, you like all the art?
I love a bit of that. Frankly, the people I'm buying for, the family, don't really like that very much. So I end up buying them things that I'd quite like myself.
Oh, that's what I end up doing.
Yeah, but I do love a Christmas market.
I like the food at Christmas markets. That's what I'd be going for. You
Yeah,
know,
really
your
good
mulled
fun.
wine.
Perfect weather for it.
Things like that.
Shall we find out about the weather?
Let's.
Here's Alex.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. The weather's on the change. It's been a very dry November so far, but most of us will see some rain as we go through the next 24 hours and turning colder across northern Britain, very gusty across northern Scotland. Plenty of showers packing in here. Those showers will have some snow mixed in over the hills. A zone of wetter weather over northern England, dull and damp start here. That'll track slowly southwards, bringing some damp weather to Wales, the Midlands, eventually East Anglia and the southeast, although the far south probably staying dry until quite late on. Still quite mild here, but colder air is moving in, so although we'll see some sunny spells, it will feel colder, particularly when you add that wind on, which will be very lively across the Northern Isles, staying very blustery here through the afternoon and into the evening. More showers coming in here as well. Mostly of rain at lower levels, but some sleet and snow and hail thrown in for good measure. Certainly snow on the highlands of Scotland as the showers pack in here, but much of eastern and southern Scotland staying dry and bright, and the showers certainly further south at low levels will be of rain. This is the line of rain which will track its way south through the rest of today. Again, nothing too heavy, but because it has been so dry, it'll be the first rain many of us have seen for a while. It does scoot away down across the English Channel, and behind that the colder air seeps into all parts of the UK. Staying pretty gusty across the far northeast. Elsewhere the wind's a little lighter, and so tumbling temperatures. Pockets of frost certainly likely over northeast England, central and eastern Scotland, and further south temperatures well down into single figures. So a fresher, colder feel for many on Sunday, but a bright start for eastern England, southern England. Plenty of sunshine here. We are looking at wetter weather coming into Northern Ireland, more showers in northern Scotland with some snow on the hills. And as this wet weather comes in across southern Scotland, northern England, it could provide some snow on Sunday evening. There are Met Office warnings in place for wintry weather next week.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed Heat Pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now it's the final week of our Christmas giveaway. You could win a huge amount of tax-free cash, shopping vouchers and GB News Christmas gifts. But you have to hurry as time is running out. Here's how you could win Christmas on us.
There's just 39 days and...
Right, do stay with us because still to come, we're asking, should we deport foreign criminals to free up space in our own prisons? We'll be debating that next.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. Well, drinkers have been warned about a drop in the quality of French wines after poor weather conditions hit this year's grape harvest. Winemakers across France will make 240 million fewer bottles of wine this year, the country's farming ministry said on Tuesday. So should we think of switching from French to English? I'm joined now by sommelier and founder of Inflorescence Wines, Jacinta Madison Williams. Hello, Jacinta.
Good morning.
Nice to see you. First of all, let's just think about the poor French. Has this been a fairly universal weather catastrophe for France?
It has. Kind of across the board, we're about 22% down on last year's crops, which is quite significant. I think it's like one of the 4 years over the last century that have been this low. So,
and it's affected both quality and quantity?
I would say more so quantity. There's always ways of counteracting quality. It depends if people are desperate to make wine. They can obviously push out more watered-down grapes. There's been a lot of rain, if you hadn't noticed. Not only in France, we felt it here too. But lots of frost, supercell hailstorms have completely wiped out some crops. So in some cases, there's nothing to make. In other cases, it's just really watered-down grapes, and you want to pick earlier to make sure you're avoiding all those rains. But I would say more so it's quantity. But saying that, France is still the biggest producer of wine in the world. It might be taken over by Spain this year, but as a consumer, don't panic. We're not going to run out of wine. And we obviously have lots of lovely wine growing here now in England. So whether we do make a little jump for a bit to English wine, but there's definitely still lots out there.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Breakfast. It's 7:23. Now, could Britain be one step closer to solving its prison crisis?
The Justice Minister, Lord Ponsonby, travelled to Poland earlier this week to sign a new memorandum of understanding.
Well, he also explored the possibility of an Albanian-style prisons transfer deal. As of October this year, there were 906 Polish prisoners in UK prisons. So we're asking this morning, should the UK government ban foreign criminals from our prisons?
Well, to debate this, we have Professor of Criminology at Staffordshire University, that's James Treadwell, and teacher and community activist Aisha Ali Khan. A very good morning to both of you. James, can I come to you first and just say 906 Polish prisoners, not all of them would probably be eligible for deporting back to Poland. So it's not going to make an enormous difference, is it?
No, it wouldn't make an enormous difference. But if we look at the numbers more generally, at the moment we have 3 prisons given over to foreign criminals exclusively in the UK who are subject to deportation. We've got about 10,300 prisoners that we could deport who are subject to deportation. More concerningly, actually, we have around about 12, just under 12,000 people in the community who are eligible to be deported. And the question really ought to be, I think, rather than ought we to, the question is, why are we not? Why is there a situation whereby when people are subject to deportation orders, why are they not being deported at that stage of either the completion of the sentence or the completion of the term of the sentence where they're allowed to go? Why is it not happening? And there are really big practical problems. Sometimes it's not happening because you simply can't deport to the countries because there is no agreement. But it certainly is true that when you think that we've just used an early release mechanism, SDS-40, to remove around about 3,000 prisoners, we're talking about numbers that are far, far higher. And it hasn't got much attention. And I think that we have to realise that part of that has been a kind of reluctance to face up to the problem that there is a problem.
Aisha, what do you make of that?
Well, we've had this conversation before. We always talk about it in terms of that, these countries are almost similar, identical to the UK, and we're going to send prisoners back to prisons that are similar and maintain the way we maintain our prisons in the UK. But that's not the case. And just going back to the Albanian deal that was struck a few years back, with sending 200 potentially 200 prisoners. Since then, only 30 have been deported. That's like 15%. And the point of this whole exercise was to free up space. That's not happened. And I think there's two things we really need to talk about. The first one being the reason why we are so overcrowded in the UK prisons today is because there hasn't been the investment, there hasn't been acknowledgement that prisons need the money, we need to build more prisons, we need to improve the ones that we've got, and so on. So that has been a massive oversight by the previous government, obviously the Conservatives, and now we've got Labour, and this is a priority for Labour. It should be a priority for the Labour government right now. And the second thing I would like to say is that oftentimes the countries that these people, these criminals, are being deported back to, there's massive issues around human rights. They could have been obviously been living in the UK for most of their lives. They've got family, they've got friends here, they've been sort of well assimilated, and for that reason, then they're removed to go to a country they have very little links to, and so on. And also, I was looking into this last night and doing a bit of research, and the sort of name that kept on coming back to me was the Bangladeshi lady who was deported after she'd left to join ISIS, Shamima Begum. And I thought, again, she was deported and banned for life. She's never allowed to come back, even though obviously she's been appealing for all this time. Once you're deported, it actually immediately you have a 10-year ban from re-entering the UK. And even then, after you've been deported, trying to fight that, get the money together, instruct lawyers, it's not an easy process. So effectively, it is a lifetime ban for some people who've actually been here all their lives, who've got family and friends here, they've got children here, they've got families here. And another issue that I would like to point out is, according to legislation, which is already in place, by the way, if you've got a sentence over 12 months, a sentence over 4 years, you're eligible for deportation. Now, we know the sentencing in this country is really, really crazy. You get crazy sentences for minor offences, and paedophiles who've been arrested, with horrific images on their phones and their devices are walking out without a prison sentence. So the sentencing guidelines and the sentencing situation in this country is not conducive to this argument anyway. So I think there's a number of issues we need to talk about, and we can talk about, let's go and let's get this memorandum signed and let's get these agreements in place and let's go and improve the prisons over there so the prisoners can go to better facilities. But actually, we need to talk about the systems that we have in the UK that are effectively broken, and we need to start looking at how to improve the actual prisons that we have in the UK, and also overhaul the legal system as well, the justice system.
James?
I would agree. We have to look at the UK system, and we have to overhaul the UK system, and we have to invest. I think it is more complex than sort of simply to say it's very, very easy to deport. There are countries that it's difficult to deport to. That there is also that legacy of history where if someone has entered into the UK, been granted leave to remain, and then perhaps settled and spent some time here and developed links and connections, should they then be deported? The fact of the matter, though, is that they were at least granted that citizenship on the expectation that they be of good behaviour. If you break the law, then you lose it. Again, when I talk about the complexity, a quarter of these people who are eligible for deportation are EU nationals. They're not going out to other countries. They're going to advanced, developed countries. And quite simply, it's in the bureaucracy of trying to get them onto planes and back home at the end of their sentences that we fail massively. And we fail massively in all manner of bureaucratic tasks. And some of that is to do with investment. You need enough staff to be able to process, to be able to do. We also then, and this should be mentioned too, the public have a role to play as well. When it comes to deportation of people, even when it's all been agreed, it's gone through the courts and so on, a lot of the time the government have to use commercial flights. They then put someone onto a commercial flight who's flown with holidaymakers. The holidaymakers then, who are perhaps going on a holiday of a lifetime to Jamaica, object and stop the plane from taking off. That person that you think is shouting about their human rights may well be a predatory rapist or someone who's been taking shots at people in the street, being escorted by security officers. It is incredibly, incredibly complex. But the first point is, should a sovereign nation have the right to remove people who have essentially breached the laws and not been of good behaviour? Yes, they should. Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the United States all do this, all progressive, liberal, social democracies. They don't shout about it being horrendous and awful. And as a starting point, there is no argument there. The should we of the question is absolutely yes. We've got to look at the practicalities of how and where we do it. And where I would really agree with what's been said, I think, is that the agency that very often have to do it, or the agencies involved in doing a lot of it, are not those that get the attention in the criminal justice system, border force and so on. And yet it's those agencies that often need the resource. It's around immigration to be able to do it properly and to ensure essentially that the sentences of the courts and what should be happening is.
OK, James Treadwell, Aisha Ali Khan, really good to see you both today. Thank you so much for your thoughts. Let us know what you think. We can see the views coming in thick and fast.
Yes, a lot of people saying they're fed up being asked to care about the human rights of people who've broken the law sufficiently to be in jail at all.
Well, do keep them coming in. gbnews.com/you'll say. Still to come, we're going to be going through the sport and a big fight that happened in the early hours of this morning.
Apparently.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Her name is synonymous with fashion. Karen Millen, the high street designer whose dresses have been worn by some of the world's most famous women, including the Princess of Wales.
Yes, but in a recent Daily Mail interview conducted by our showbiz juggernaut, as I call her, Steph Tetchy, 63-year-old Karen confessed she isn't immune from worries about her appearance.
Well, this summer, Karen took the plunge with a £35,000 facelift using the very latest surgical techniques. Now, to hear more of her story, we're delighted to be joined by Karen herself and consultant plastic surgeon Dr. Tunj Tiryaki, co-founder of the London Regenerative Institute. So, how did you two get together?
That was a meeting at the Parliament, wasn't it?
It was, actually, yeah, through mutual friends, really.
So you already knew of Tunj and you knew his expertise. How did you come to the decision to kind of go ahead with this? I was reading the Mail article and apparently one day you looked in the mirror, and I've heard this story so many times before,
yeah, I know,
from not least my mum and my nan, and they said they looked in the mirror and thought, goodness me.
I know. I think it's that menopausal thing when suddenly things just change. And, yeah, for me, it was coming out of lockdown almost, where I was probably on the back end of menopause, and I just, suddenly looked in the mirror and it was like, oh, my God, what's happened to me?
Because I guess you still, I mean, for me, I'm 35, I still feel like a 20-year-old or even an 18-year-old. Does that change as you get into sort of your...
Unfortunately not, right?
Well, it does change to a certain extent, but, I've always looked after myself, so I've always kept fit and looked after my skin. So, it did come as a bit of a shock. I mean, I know, obviously, ageing happens to us all and we have to embrace that, but there's a certain amount that we have to put up with and then, other things can step in.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
OK, sport time. Aidan's here. Tell us about the big fight.
Well, it was a real intriguing bout, I would say. I say bout, just kind of trivialising it in a way, but it wasn't a wasn't what we'd know as a conventional boxing match, but it was a real event, and that was the key to this. That's why the purse was worth around, for 50 million pounds, I think it was. We calculated earlier.
So remind us who they are.
So it's Jake Paul, who came through the YouTube route, so he attracted sort of a new generation of supporters, really, who were mainly tuning into him, which is why he got 2/3 of the fight, up against a boxing legend, one of the greatest fighters ever at heavyweight, Mike Tyson, who's now 58 years old. He was the undisputed heavyweight title, but the last time he lifted a heavyweight title belt, Jake Paul was not born. So that's how long ago. He was known as the baddest man on the planet. I mean, I remember him getting in the ring with Trevor Berbick, Larry Holmes, Frank Bruno back in the 80s, and he was... I mean, when he lost to James Buster Douglas, that shook the world. It really did. I woke up in the morning, it was a different time zone. So that's the kind of the billing of both fighters. But it was you know, it was perplexed. I was perplexed earlier in the week, thinking who was going to win this. You know, is the pedigree of Mike Tyson going to win out against the younger man, who, let's face it, is not a great boxer? There's a major fight taking place in Saudi Arabia tonight involving Chris Billam-Smith, a unification bout. No one's really talking about it because it's been overshadowed.
Yeah, but this one was the glitzy one.
Yeah, yes, it was. Huge ring walks as well. The famous Mike Tyson, just the very simple black trunks that everyone used to love. He was 5'8", a very small heavyweight, but he was just vicious in the ring, and he was so exciting to watch. We didn't see any of that today because the movement isn't there, the mobility isn't there. The punching power is the last thing to go. The punch resistance is not there either. But fortunately, Jake Paul didn't really land any meaningful punches on him. He didn't need to because he just had to stand back, stay out of the reach of Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson was probably gassed after about 2 rounds, I would suggest.
Yeah, but he went on to the very end.
Look, I mean, it wasn't 12 rounds of 3 minutes, but it was eight rounds of 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And I would say that, you know, as I say, it was a unanimous decision, and that was the right decision by the judges because Jake Paul was marginally superior. And Mike Tyson said afterwards, I've been watching a lot of the reaction, he said, look, I'd like to do this again. Well, you can understand why, Ellie, because he earned 15.4
money. He's 58.
No, he was...
He's gone bankrupt a few times.
Yeah, a few times. A few times.
Made his millions, lost his millions.
Yeah, that's how they roll, isn't it? But £15.4 million is his share of the purse. Jake Paul, £31.1 million. Nice work if you can get it, eh?
Yeah. OK, what about the rest of sport?
We had rugby, auto internationals last night. Ireland making hard work of Argentina, 22-19 in that one, but a nice bounce back last week, having lost to South Africa. And England are playing against South Africa today, 5-4 at Twickenham, looking to bounce back from that humiliation last week against Australia. And the captain, Jamie George, saying they're going to be brutal with South Africa. That's easier said than done, though.
And talking of famous names, Emma Raducanu has done quite well thus far in the Billie Jean King Cup. Yeah, that's over in Germany. She's beaten Eula Niemeyer, if I've got that name right. But she's in a team event with Katie Bolter. She's not had a vintage... Well, she's had a poor 3 years since winning in the US Open. It was a stunning victory as well, not losing a set. I've never really... I made excuses for many a long year. And I'm running out of excuses now. But we're seeing a little bit of a chink of recovery here. And let's hope she can take it on into next season because we're winding down the season now. And who knows, we might see a renaissance. She's certainly young enough to do. She's got the talent. Has she got the mindset? And will her body hold up? We'll see. And just to mention the football as well, Scotland won their first match last night in 10 matches against Croatia. A late goal by John McGinn, 4 minutes from time. England in action tomorrow against the Republic of Ireland. Northern Ireland winning last night against Belarus as well in the Nations League.
OK. Aidan, thank you very much.
See you in a bit.
Do you stay with us? We're going to be going through the papers. That's next.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight. Every night from 11 p.m.
This is about Pokenomics, which is the often hidden, often controversial economics of beauty. And there's this guy, he's called, here it says Anil Hamamesh, but I think they've missed out the D, so I'm guessing he's Daniel rather than Anil, which he might be, though. He might be or he might be Anil for an Anil Hamamesh, maybe. That's his unfortunate name. But basically, he's looked into how ugliness affects people, and it turns out he's discovered that ugly people are less attractive. And that affects them for the rest of their life. Now, where this does get interesting, and it is worrying because, of course, this is going to lead to the ugly rights movement, ugly pride march down some dirty back street. And but I remember hearing about this at the time. People born in the UK between March 3rd and March 9th, 1958 were part of this massive survey that was done, which was finding about what would happen to them later in life, and it went through a number of different factors. But I didn't know this. The teachers were also asked to rate their pupils on attractiveness.
Yeah, it's a bit pedo-y.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know whether that would wash now, but it was bone structure and where they're symmetrical, that kind of thing.
You should probably really have a committee of at least half a dozen teachers. Take a sort of standardised view across that. You might get a different point of view from the biology teacher, from the Latin master.
You suggest this to a school, and then we can see if we get it going.
It's interesting, though. I don't know whether you're aware of this, but generally speaking, it is understood within sort of psychological, psychometrics and so on, that IQ is the thing that most closely maps your outcomes, generally speaking. But the idea of beauty is the one that isn't discussed. And there is genuinely a theory that this is actually the great determinant of your life chances.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark Meets at My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Breakfast. Let's take a look at some of the newspaper front pages.
Well, the Telegraph is leading with Kemi Badenoch's comments, and she urges the Prime Minister to review hate laws to defend free speech.
Similar front page from the Daily Mail this morning as Boris Johnson compares hate laws to living in the Soviet Union.
The Times leads with comments from a senior economic advisor to Donald Trump, who urges the UK to align with the US and not the EU.
The I newspaper suggests household bills could increase by £280 with fresh warnings over inflation.
And The Guardian says that junk food addiction is costing the UK £268 billion a year.
Ooh, well, joining us now to go through what's making the news this morning is journalist Stephanie Tecci and political editor of HuffPost UK, Kevin Schofield. Morning.
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 And Kevin, should we start with Wes Streeting and his comments on the assisted dying laws?
Yeah, so MPs will vote on the 29th of November, so a week on Friday, on this assisted dying bill. It's a private member's bill being brought forward by Kim Leadbeater, the Labour MP. Now, because it's a matter of conscience and such a sensitive issue, there's going to be no whipping by the government or the opposition. It'll be a completely free vote. The government is maintaining a neutral position, and the advice given to ministers was basically stay out of it. Don't give an opinion, because that could be seen as the government endorsing one way or another. But Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, has completely blown that apart and has made two big interventions. Basically, he's against it, although he voted for it in 2015 when it was last up, interestingly. But he's changed his mind now. And this week he said that basically if it passes, it will cost money, and that money will need to come from the NHS budget. So that means that other services might have to be cut. Now, that's been interpreted as an attempt to basically force Labour MPs, because it's the NHS, to vote against it. Now, I've spoken to quite a lot of MPs about it this week, and some have said, yeah, definitely that will firm their opposition to it. They're undecided, that will make them vote against it. Others have said, well, that could be counterproductive. Some people think Wes Streeting's gone too far, so they'll vote for the bill, basically to spite him, basically. So it's caused a real split in the Labour Party and a huge debate across Parliament, and it's impossible to call right now. It was defeated, as I say, in 2015, comfortably. Really wasn't even close.
Do you not think the Secretary of State for Health has a right to have his say, and that maybe we have a right to hear his opinion? He is, after all, the guy in charge of health.
I do understand that point of view, but I do feel like it is a sensitive issue, and I think for the people such as like Dame Esther Ranson, who are hoping that this bill does get passed through, I think there is two sides to this story. And I think, yes, we do need to hear his opinion, but also we need to also consider the people who do want this bill to pass through. And I think by him kind of pushing his opinion into the public periphery in the way he has, obviously that is going to sway a lot of opinion, but there is those kind of risks of how much is it going to cost the NHS. We already have an NHS which is on its knees, so in that sense, if it is going to be more of a financial burden, I think the public also have a right to know that as well.
I mean, it's quite interesting because Margaret Hodge, who's in the House of Lords now, she has really criticised West Streeting. She's a Labour grandee. But the point she made was the bulk of NHS spending is in the last 6 months of someone's life. So actually, she says, this idea that it's going to knock the NHS budget if you bring in assisted dying, she says it just doesn't make any sense.
Well, hang on a minute. I was wondering when he said that, thought, where are the costs? You were thinking, why would it certainly cost? And there are a number of doctors have to be involved, etc. But also, when the first time somebody brings a legal case against the NHS allowing this, maybe a family member of somebody who's dying says, I want to launch a legal case against my relative being able to do this, and then takes the matter to court, suddenly the NHS is having to afford lawyers to defend their own bill, their own rights.
No, absolutely. No,
so I can see how it's odd that he brought money into it, though.
Well, it was seen as I say, a sort of nuclear option. It's the one thing that really gets Labour MPs really exercised is the NHS, and this idea that frontline services will need to be cut is, I think, going to persuade quite a few of them.
And the other thing I wondered was, if you're Secretary of State for Health, and clearly, I think most people agree, Wes Streeting is clearly passionate about his job, you believe that health is about health. And not about helping people die. And maybe he sees that as something that he just can't come to terms with as Secretary of State for Health.
Well, I think this is where the moral compass comes with this issue here, because I think when it comes to death, no one likes to talk about it and no one likes to face it head on. And then now you're coming in with this kind of proposed thing where people will choose effectively how and when they die. And I think it's just as a society, I don't know if we're ready for it. I know we're talking about it, but the reality of it will be something else.
Do you think things have changed, though, since 2015? In the light of things like Dame Esther Ranson?
Yes, because I think when you're terminally ill, obviously I don't understand that or haven't been through that, but when you're terminally ill, you can talk about how you feel and just how you feel like your dignity has gone and all the pain you're going through. And I think people are more vocal now about terminal illness. So I think this is where the culture has changed, and I think this is why the public's more sympathetic. And if it is a family member, you don't want to see them suffer.
No, of course not.
Well, Steph, let's stay with Wes Streeting, shall we? Because he's also been talking about the dangers of going abroad for cosmetic procedures.
Yeah, over the past few years, Eliana and Kevin, we've seen this rampant surge of women going abroad, especially to places like Turkey for tummy tucks, for Brazilian butt lifts. And, you know, before I used to think, oh, it's just vanity here, being silly. But there's a lot of pressure for women on social media. They see these perfect bodies, and now it's achievable to get a perfect body. Go to Turkey, you've got a bigger butt.
And the price differences.
Yeah, it's much cheaper. But the problem is, when you're going to those places now, it is a risk, as Wes Streeting is saying, and he's asking women to do the research and make sure that if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. I've read some horrific stories over the past few months of mothers who have died in the operating table while going for BBLs, as people refer them to. And, you know, we can't really fight for them because they're in a different country, and then we have these cases of medical negligence, and women really do need to do the research before committing to these surgeries. So that's what Wes Streeting is fighting for.
He's got more men doing it now as well, don't you? You see a lot of people get their teeth done as well, and that in itself can be potentially dangerous.
Or hair transplants.
I mean, I can see why it being a lot cheaper would be tempting for some people if you're looking for a bargain. But you'd also think, is your body where you should be looking for a bargain? Should you be looking for the cheapest deal when it comes to cosmetic surgery?
Especially your face.
Especially your face. I mean, you just wouldn't run the risk. Also, the risk of complication. I mean, if you fly to Turkey, you have cosmetic surgery and then fly back, I can't imagine that's particularly hygienic or the best thing to be doing after major surgery.
No,
and then if you need help, it's on the NHS.
Well, that's the problem.
Exactly. See why Wes Streeting's concerned about it, because it'll be the NHS ultimately that picks up the bill when people come back to get
And it's not
work done.
And it's not one size fits all. You know, just because it looks great on one person, it doesn't mean your body's going to react the same way. And I think this is where the risk is.
God, there's an amazing story in one of the papers today. Maybe we'll do it in the next hour. About somebody who had a face transplant.
Really?
Apparently there have been several, but this one looks as though he's doing well. But he was in a car accident, terribly, terribly burned, particularly his face, just disappeared really. And there was a donor somewhere who had died and said that he didn't mind his body and including his face to be used for transplant. And this guy's had somebody else's face transplanted onto his skull. Really.
Does it look good?
Well, it's very swollen, as you can imagine, very, very swollen. But you can see how the nose and the eyes and the mouth are looking good.
Oh,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, let's do that in the next hour.
Yeah, let's
try and get the pictures up
more
as
about
well.
that.
Yeah,
The pictures are incredible.
It sounds like that film.
Meanwhile, tell us how to boil an egg very quickly. You've only got a minute and a half.
All right, OK.
Kevin, this is according to Jamie Oliver, who's now telling us how to boil an egg.
Yeah, so he's been accused of being patronising for teaching people how to boil an egg, but we were talking about it off air, and it's definitely a debate. So what he says is a step-by-step guide includes saying 5.5 minutes is the ideal time for a soft-boiled egg, which sounds like a long time.
5.5?
I think that's too long.
Yeah.
And then for a hard-boiled egg, 11 to 12 minutes. It'll be like a golf ball by then. I mean, it will definitely be hard, there's no doubt about that. Anyway, so people have said, I learned how to boil an egg when I was 5 years old. Are there really people who don't know that? Somebody else said, are people that thick? And someone else said, absolutely incorrect, I'm afraid, my dear Jamie. Far too long. So it does get people talking. When we were discussing,
I don't know.
you put it in cold water and bring it up to boil.
But then you lose your timings. You'd have to time from the minute you thought it was boiling.
Yeah.
Jamie says you put a pinch of salt in. If you buy a store-bought egg, run it under hot tap water for a few minutes before putting it into boiling water to sort of reduce temperature shock. The science of how to boil an egg is huge, apparently.
And people are very particular about how they like their eggs.
Yeah.
I think this is invaluable advice. I can fry an egg, I can scramble an egg, I can't boil an egg.
No, it's because you can't see what's happening.
Yeah, I just don't know what to do. So thank you, Jamie.
Yeah. Well, apparently there is a video on YouTube as well of Jamie Oliver showing you how to boil an egg. So
I
we've
think
all
there'll
got
be a lot of
something to
people
learn.
that just don't know how to boil an egg. I mean, it is a science. We went to a hotel in Austria for last year, and the only thing they had available for breakfast was boiled eggs. I cannot tell you how long it took to literally, pardon the pun, crack that. We couldn't get the perfect egg at all. It took us the whole week to work out how to boil the egg perfectly.
You see, that's what I would do. I would boil several for different...
Eventually we got it right.
But one is OK.
It's about 4 minutes, I found out. Straight into boiling water, 4 minutes. It's the perfect boiled egg. But it is difficult.
I just hate peeling the skin as well.
Like, now that,
that
you get kitchen roll it out, and then you roll your egg like a rolling pin.
Yes.
Little tap, and then a roll.
Yeah, but surely you stand it in an egg, you just bash it, don't you?
Well, no.
Yes, you do. You bash it round the edge and then lift it
But then
off.
when you try to peel an egg that is still a bit soft, disaster.
The perfect way to boil an egg, I'm sure you know best. Get in touch with us. Meanwhile, thank you very much. And we'll move on now to the weather.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. The weather's on the change. It's been a very dry November so far, but most of us will see some rain as we go through the next 24 hours and turning colder across northern Britain. Very gusty across northern Scotland. Plenty of showers packing in here. Those showers will have some snow mixed in over the hills. A zone of wetter weather over northern England. Dull and damp start here. That'll track slowly southwards, bringing some damp weather to Wales, the Midlands, eventually East Anglia and the southeast, although the far south probably staying dry until quite late on. Still quite mild here, but colder air is moving in, so although we'll see some sunny spells, it will feel colder, particularly when you add that wind on, which will be very lively across the Northern Isles, staying very blustery here through the afternoon and into the evening. More showers coming in here as well. Mostly of rain at lower levels, but some sleet and snow and hail thrown in for good measure. Certainly snow on the highlands of Scotland as the showers pack in here, but much of eastern and southern Scotland staying dry and bright, and the showers certainly further south at low levels will be of rain. This is the line of rain which will track its way south through the rest of today. Again, nothing too heavy, but because it has been so dry, it'll be the first rain many of us have seen for a while. It does scoot away Stornoway down across the English Channel, and behind that the colder air seeps into all parts of the UK. Staying pretty gusty across the far northeast. Elsewhere the wind's a little lighter, and so tumbling temperatures. Pockets of frost certainly likely over northeast England, central and eastern Scotland, and further south temperatures well down into single figures. So a fresher, colder feel for many on Sunday, but a bright start for eastern England, southern England. Plenty of sunshine here. We are looking at wetter weather coming into Northern Ireland, more showers in northern Scotland with some snow on the hills. And as this wet weather comes in across southern Scotland, northern England, it could provide some snow on Sunday evening. There are Met Office warnings in place for wintry weather next week.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB.
They suck. Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
In 2020, after almost 80 years, Oxford University's Pitt Rivers Museum removed its famous collection of shrunken heads with sewn-up lips and eyes made by the South American Shuar and Ashwar people. How do museums decide what should be shown and what should be confined to storage? Can controversial exhibits be left on display with suitable contextualisation in captions? Who would want to be a curator facing such controversial questions? For review, I'm delighted to be joined by journalist Eitan Smallman. Welcome to GB News. I think many people, when they hear that we're going to discuss museums or art galleries, think that it's going to be, oh, that wokery question. But it strikes me, and I think it strikes you too, that this is not just about wokery at all. There are some really interesting ethical questions here. For example, I mean, let's start with this one, and there are several examples of it. Should we be displaying human bodies, the remains of human beings? Should we be displaying them in museums?
Absolutely. It's not just the usual suspects, young snowflakes, who are objecting to these things. They're just naturally cultural shifts, and people of all ages and all political persuasions may feel uneasy about displaying human remains of any kind, especially human remains that have been taken against the will of the communities or taken violently. Hilary Mantel led a campaign to remove a 7-foot 7-inch skeleton of Charles Byrne, known as the Irish Giant, from the Hunterian Museum. He had specifically said that he didn't want to be displayed and didn't want to be taken by anatomists, and yet was displayed for a couple of hundred years until a couple of years ago. He hasn't had the burial he requested, but he's no longer on public display.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning. Kemi Badenoch calls for a review to hate laws to protect free speech.
The Conservative Party leader is challenging the Prime Minister on non-crime hate incidents following the investigation into the journalist Alison Pearson.
She's called it absolutely wrong for the police to visit any journalist's home simply because they'd expressed an opinion.
Boris Johnson has also attacked the government in what he calls a growing scourge of thought police in the UK, comparing it to the Soviet Union at its worst.
The Prime Minister has doubled down on changes to inheritance tax on farmers, insisting that most will be unaffected and that all the government has to do really is just to keep explaining how it's going to work.
The Health Secretary has said he'll improve safety for those choosing to go abroad for cosmetic surgery. It's in the wake of several deaths.
And as Polish inmates being held in UK prisons face being sent home to free up prison spaces, we've been asking, should we deport foreign criminals?
It's been branded a farce and a freak show, but it's all over in Dallas, and Jake Paul has beaten Mike Tyson by unanimous decision in front of a global TV audience of around 50 million people. Will have all the reaction later this hour.
Colder and more wintry weather is on the way for all of us as we head into next week. But what about the weekend? Well, many of us will see something we've not seen much of so far this November, a little bit of rain. Join me later for a full forecast and all the details.
It's just gone 8 o'clock. I'm Ellie Costello.
And I'm Anne Diamond, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Tony's been in touch this morning saying, Ellie and Anne, you remind me of a fruit salad. A fruit salad sweet.
Yeah.
The way that your colours mixed this morning.
Yes, very citrus.
We do. I'm just looking at us now. No.
Well, I was just thinking if the weather is plummeting cold, which it seemed to be when I sort of ventured out of the front door this morning, really cold, you could feel...
It'll be cold where you are.
Ooh, yeah. You think, right, OK, we've just got to cheer people up with a bit of brightness.
Yes, very good
Woolly
idea.
jumpers. We noticed that Aidan's got his woolly waistcoat on.
Yeah, 3 layers today.
Is it a woolly waistcoat?
Yes,
oh,
it is indeed.
it is. You've layered up.
I have layered up. It's chilly
Woolly
this morning.
waistcoat time.
4 degrees it was this morning.
Car takes a couple of minutes to warm up as well.
Yes,
doesn't it?
exactly.
Did you have to defrost this morning?
No, I didn't have to do that, but I
You
just...
have to do that.
I know.
I know, it's horrible.
I never give myself the time.
No,
either.
it takes a couple of minutes, doesn't it, to get on the road. You rev the engine a bit and get the heat going. It's all, you know, it soon irons itself out. But
Snow coming this week, did you know?
no,
Yes.
actually.
Yeah,
Is it?
to get snow.
in some parts of the country, by
Yeah,
Wednesday.
They haven't been specific about where yet, have they? I mean, we'll be double-checking, but...
Enough to build a snowman, do you think?
Well, that I don't know.
No.
When we in England, I mean, I know in Scotland, the further north you go, you get serious snow at times. We don't get quite that serious
I've
snow.
built a snowman in years.
Yeah.
Oh, you need to get out this week.
Yeah.
Get
It's
big
much
big
harder
carrot
than
and
it looks, isn't it, building a snowman?
Yeah, I've not built one for about 30 years, but yeah, from what I can remember, it was tough.
I was going to say it's like boiling an egg. It's much harder than you think.
Yeah.
You are a cook, though.
Yes.
How do you boil an egg?
Oh, yeah.
How do I boil an egg? I'll just give it 3 minutes.
3 minutes?
Yeah. That's
Oh, wait, into boiling water?
Yeah, you're skipping steps here.
Into boiling water. Yeah, what else do you do?
Well, is it going into cold water or hot water?
I'd say
and
hot
do we
water.
prep the egg before we put it in?
I wouldn't know how to prep the egg, to be honest with you.
Well, according to
I'd
Jamie
just
Oliver, you
chuck
have
it
to
in.
run it under a hot tap. It's store-bought.
Yeah, to reduce
Would you
sort
do
of
that?
shock. I've never done that in my life.
No.
But he also says you can prick a little hole in the top bit as well.
I've used his recipes before, and I think they're quite effective. It's quite simple.
He knows how to cook.
He's had a lot of stick in the past. Remember the turkey Twizzler thing about 20 years ago?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's always made headlines when it comes to
He has
food.
indeed, yeah. That's when he started wearing clothes.
Yes,
He was a naked chef, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
Oh, of course he was. Yeah.
Back as a young
Those
man.
were the days.
They were indeed,
I
yeah.
wonder if he's still got the body to be able to do it.
I do think there's a lot of people out there that wouldn't know how to boil an egg, genuinely.
No, look, Delia Smith, the great Delia Smith, got into trouble about 25 years ago for making it chapter 1 in one of her cookbooks, How to Boil an Egg. It is one of those things that we think we know how to do, but actually, apparently, most of us don't do it well at all. Very hit and miss.
Yeah. Well, let us
I do
And
like
it can
Delia Smith.
spoil it utterly, can't it?
Yeah.
If you're looking forward to a boiled egg and soldiers.
Yes.
And then
Well, you get-
it
it goes
turns
too
out
hard.
to be runny in the wrong places or whatever.
Or too hard, then you
Or too
can't
hard,
dip
and then you
into
can't. Yeah,
toast.
absolutely.
I know.
Yeah,
It was the ultimate kids' breakfast, wasn't it? Boiled egg and soldiers.
Yeah.
It was indeed.
And then
yeah.
Edwina Curry sort of spoiled it all a bit by sort of saying,
Oh, yeah,
well, all our eggs were
1966.
contaminated. And I suddenly stopped feeding my children eggs after that and stopped eating them myself.
Oh, really? Do you not eat
Caused a
eggs?
huge
For how
problem.
long? Did you
I
go back to them?
don't like eggs now. No,
Really?
I don't like.
Or did it put you off since then?
No, it wasn't that, because I realised in the end I think she was speaking sense. I mean, she was speaking the truth. It just wasn't a very comfortable truth for the country.
Massive story, wasn't it?
Massive story.
Edwina.
Edwina. Yeah.
Well, I have eggs every day.
Really?
Yeah.
How?
Good protein.
Scrambled.
Scrambled. Love scrambled eggs.
Yeah, good
Every single day. That's my breakfast.
I was listening on the radio. A footballer was talking about Tony Cascarino was talking about his breakfast choices. He said he has scrambled egg on a jacket potato.
What?
Oh.
Ew. That's not.
I wasn't sure either.
I don't think that's going to catch on.
But a jacket potato would take ages to cook.
I had one at
I mean, by
10:30
the
in the
time-
morning the other day.
I was going to say, by the time you got it ready,
I
it
actually
would be lunchtime.
Turned up at my local breakfast place at 9:30 the other week. I said, sorry, you're going to have to wait another hour for a jacket potato. And I thought,
Yeah, exactly.
ridiculous. I love one early in the morning for some reason.
And then would you
I need to go.
halve? Getting silly now, but would you halve the jacket potato, put the raw egg in,
eat the
put
whole
it back
thing,
to
no.
cook inside the jacket?
Oh, no.
No?
No. That needs to be stopped immediately. Very bad idea.
It's very controversial talking about breakfast ideas, isn't it? Should we move on to real controversy in
Yes,
politics?
let's.
And Kemi Badenoch has urged the Prime Minister to review hate crime laws in efforts to protect free speech. And Boris Johnson has loaded in as well in the Mail today, comparing our laws to the Soviet Union at its worst.
Well, the interventions follow a police investigation into the Telegraph journalist Alison Pearson. She was accused of allegedly stirring up racial hatred with a social media post last November.
Well, we're joined now by GB News' political correspondent, Catherine Forster. This has been an amazing saga, hasn't it? And it's not over yet.
It really has been rumbling on for several days now, not going away at all, unsurprisingly, because I think many people will find it incredibly shocking that the police, who we imagine are investigating actual crimes, should be looking into things like a journalist's tweet. And this, knock that Alison Pearson, the Telegraph columnist, got on the door on Remembrance Sunday. They wouldn't tell her what the tweet was, what she was supposed to have said. It's all very, very murky. And then I think it was heightened by a story in the Times yesterday. They'd put out Freedom of Information requests, and they'd discovered that the police had been investigating what they call non-crime hate instances with school children, including a 9-year-old child who'd said something, a bad word to somebody else in the playground, and 2 secondary school-age girls who'd said that somebody else smelt like fish, and that the police had got involved with this. Now, Kemi Badenoch has given her first interview since becoming Tory party leader to The Telegraph, saying that she thinks that Labour needs to look into this, that we should have free speech in this country. I have to say, I interviewed the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, for GB News yesterday. I said to her, isn't this a ridiculous use of police time regarding children's comments? And she said she agreed. She said she didn't think that this is what the police should be doing. But worth saying that although Kemi Badenoch is saying we must champion free speech, the Conservatives were in power for 14 years, so this did happen on their watch. They, towards the end of that time, were looking at toughening up free speech laws. It sounds like Labour are not keen on that, but a row, I think, that's still got a long way to go.
Well, is there pressure now? Well, there is pressure, isn't there, on the Labour Party to come down tough on this? Do we need to look at the definition of what a non-crime hate order is?
I think so, and it will be very interesting to hear in the coming days what, if anything, the government proposes to do about this, because it sounded like they're going to go softer on this stuff rather than tougher. But there is uproar, isn't there? And this is nothing new, but it seems to be coming more and more extreme. And I mean, at the extreme end of this, we saw the horrendous incident, didn't we, in Batley a few years ago, of the school teacher who was literally doing his job, showed an image of the Prophet Muhammad, and there was absolute uproar. That teacher went into hiding. That him and his family's lives have been put on hold, and we live in a country where we supposedly have the right to say what you want. Increasingly, it doesn't feel like that.
No, and I mean, Labour brought it upon themselves, did they not, by their reaction to the summer of sort of riots that we had, by saying that if you post anything offensive or likely to cause offence or likely to incite offence, we will come down on you like a ton of bricks. And then we saw them, people hauled before court and sentenced to jail for things that most of us agree really don't deserve a jail term. I mean, it is frightening in its resemblance to police statism.
Indeed, and I think one of those instances with a mother of 3 who'd been sent to jail for a couple of years for something that she put on Twitter and later regretted and deleted. Meanwhile, the government, a few weeks after having this very big crackdown and sending a very clear message, have been forced to release prisoners who've committed actual crimes earlier than they otherwise would, because the jails are full. And from across the pond, of course, in the States, Elon Musk, who now owns X, formerly Twitter, is going to have a huge job in the new Trump administration, has been taking a very dim view of Labour's attitude towards free speech. This is something that he's been commenting on for months and months and months. And this will not help Labour building their relationship with Donald Trump.
No, in fact, the things that may well happen in the first few months, I mean, at least the announcements that may happen in the first few months of the Trump administration, are going to resound back here in all sorts of ways. Thinking about, forcefully deporting illegal immigrants, for instance. Trump has said he's going to do that. We will all be watching to see what happens. Elon Musk in charge of free speech, for instance. We will all be watching to see what happens in America, won't we? On tariffs. I mean, we're all going to be sitting back and wondering some of the things we may agree with, some of the things we may reel away from.
Yeah, I think there will be very profound consequences for all of us from the fact that Donald Trump is coming back. I mean, look at what happened just yesterday. Olaf Scholz, the German Chancellor, picked up the phone to Vladimir Putin and said to him, you need to look at negotiating. Vladimir Zelensky absolutely outraged by this. I don't think that conversation would have happened. It's not a coincidence, is it? This has happened a week after Donald Trump has come back. He wants an end to the war in Ukraine, and he also thinks that Europe is not paying its way. And again, yesterday with the Chancellor, Labour instinctively wants to go closer to the European Union. They say, I asked them yesterday if Brexit was safe, and she said, it's not about going back in the customs union or the single market, but we do need a closer relationship. But on the other hand, Donald Trump threatening tariffs. What about trying to get a trade deal with the US? What about a carve-out of that? I said to Rachel Reeves, you're going to have to go one way or the other, aren't you? She's trying to say, as Lord Mandelson is saying this week, pretty much that Labour can have its cake and eat it. But it's going to be fascinating. And there could be very, very serious consequences for us and for the growth that Labour keeps talking about, and we're not seeing yet, if Donald Trump does come in and slap 10 to 20% tariffs on us.
But we're still waiting to see if we might be treated as a special case. We don't know that yet either.
Well, we don't.
It's been hinted from Trump's administration.
We don't know. I mean, he does a good thing for us is that we know he has a very soft spot for the UK. He's pretty pro-Britain. Nigel Farage, of course, has offered to help Sir Keir Starmer. It doesn't seem like that's going to happen, but he is very, very close to Donald Trump. Let us see. But then again, you know, a trade deal, there was talk about it before, then you run into all the chlorinated chicken, all those sorts of things, agricultural standards. If we want a better deal with the EU, doesn't that mean, well, what will we have to give to the EU for that? And, you know, if we're going to align our standards closely with the EU, that potentially means then it's harder for us to get some special deal with the States. It's made this all much more challenging, I think, for Labour. But, you know, there are opportunities too for us with Trump coming in, certainly.
OK, Catherine Forster, good to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed.
OK, the time is, I've done it again. I've lost my little
14 minutes
clock.
past 8.
14 minutes past 8.
Yes.
Thank you. At GB News, as you know, we love to hear what you think. And so our daily poll today is, do you agree with Rachel Reeves that her plan is a fair deal for farmers? We will, of course, bring you the live results throughout the day. Make sure you stay tuned because the final result will be announced later in Nana Aquier's show.
And for all the latest polls, news and how to vote, just go to gbnews.com/poll.
Now, this winter, many people are going to struggle to pay their household bills. And according to the latest research from Christians Against Poverty.
Well, an urgent appeal has been launched to provide families in poverty with emergency aid and to help them to get out of debt ahead of this Christmas. Our Yorkshire and Humber reporter Anna Riley has more.
Debt-ridden and in despair, Sam and Paul Helsby owed thousands of pounds last winter. Paul suffered from a stress-induced stroke, and the Barnsley couple lost their successful construction business. They couldn't pay their bills and had bailiffs knocking on their door just before Christmas.
I work with my hands and I just fix things. I'm a fixer. And having that taken away from me was just a kick for me, and it made things hard for us as a family, as a person. It felt like I'd lost my manhood, basically, that I'd lost everything that I'd worked so hard to get. How quickly you go from being OK to red. And I just didn't want to leave the house, didn't want to open the curtains, didn't want to do anything. Just wanted to sit and just curl up in a ball.
Christians Against Poverty provided emergency aid and free debt advice to Paul and Sam. It was a lifeline for the family, who are now debt-free.
We had got £2 left on the electric meter. Paul was getting more and more poorly. We were absolutely at our wits' end. to have even that little bit of breathing space from this fund just to help us with some food for a couple of weeks, to help us put gas and electric on just until we got the ball rolling and CAP helped us to sort our finances out. That was huge.
Debt coach Jonathan Tweedle supported Sam and Paul. He fears the number of families in poverty is rising.
Over half the families, individuals I meet, tell us that they've thought about taking their own lives. And because they're in such a low place, there is nothing worse when I've gone into homes and in midwinter and I can see my breath on, because it's so cold and there's families and children. And also I've even been in homes where the actual lights go out because the emergency credit's gone. So it shouldn't be like.
To help Brits who can't afford energy and food this winter, Christians Against Poverty have launched an urgent appeal. The charity hopes to raise £260,000 to provide emergency aid for those who need it most this Christmas. Anna Riley, GB News.
Well, let's find out what the weather is going to do, because we hear there could be snow, and we certainly felt the temperatures plummet overnight. Here's the weather.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. The weather's on the change. It's been a very dry November so far, but most of us will see some rain as we go through the next 24 hours and turning colder across northern Britain, very gusty across northern Scotland. Plenty of showers packing in here. Those showers will have some snow mixed in over the hills. A zone of wetter weather over northern England, dull and damp start here. That'll track slowly southwards, bringing some damp weather to Wales, the Midlands, eventually East Anglia and the southeast, although the far south probably staying dry until quite late on. Still quite mild here, but colder air is moving in, so although we'll see some sunny spells, it will feel colder, particularly when you add that wind on, which will be very lively across the Northern Isles, staying very blustery here through the afternoon and into the evening. More showers coming in here as well. Mostly of rain at lower levels, but some sleet and snow and hail thrown in for good measure. Certainly snow on the highlands of Scotland as the showers pack in here, but much of eastern and southern Scotland staying dry and bright, and the showers certainly further south at low levels will be of rain. This is the line of rain which will track its way south through the rest of today. Again, nothing too heavy, but because it has been so dry, it'll be the first rain many of us have seen for a while. It does scoot away down across the English Channel, and behind that the colder air seeps into all parts of the UK. Staying pretty gusty across the far northeast. Elsewhere the wind's a little lighter, and so tumbling temperatures. Pockets of frost certainly likely over northeast England, central and eastern Scotland, and further south temperatures well down into single figures. So a fresher, colder feel for many on Sunday, but a bright start for eastern England, southern England. Plenty of sunshine here. We are looking at wetter weather coming into Northern Ireland. More showers in northern Scotland with some snow on the hills. And as this wet weather comes in across southern Scotland, northern England, it could provide some snow on Sunday evening. There are Met Office warnings in place for wintry weather next week.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week of our Christmas giveaway, and we're on the countdown to the big day. Just 39 days left, Anne. Do you know that?
What, to Christmas?
Yes.
Oh.
Scary, isn't it?
Haven't done my
Haven't done any shopping yet.
Haven't put my lights up yet.
But don't worry. Well, you might need to worry because you can't be part of this. But you shouldn't worry at home, because you could win a huge wad of tax-free cash, shopping vouchers and GB News Christmas gifts. But you do have to hurry as time is running out. Here's how you could win Christmas on us.
There's just...
Well, good luck. It could really make Christmas, couldn't it? Still to come, we're going to be hearing about safety concerns for British people heading abroad for cosmetic surgery. That's next.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
We shot with the London Eye in the background,
Yeah.
so it's quite an iconic shoot to do my cover of the Playboy magazine. So.
And you moved into the mansion for a while. Hugh called you the British Carmen Electra. You were one of his favourites, and it's renowned for its parties, of course, over there. You must have had a few of those. Must have been wild
Some
times.
fantastic parties, yeah. I mean, I met some incredible people. I will forever respect him and everyone at Playboy for the love and the support.
And you were on giant billboards, you were modelling for Nike, for Reebok, you're earning thousands of pounds a day.
Wow.
Absolutely like living the dream in terms of a model's lifestyle, and then things began to change.
Well, I've been living in Windsor for 4 years, and I can't get back into Windsor at the moment. The rents have gone ridiculous. I was paying $550 a month, and then the landlord just turned around one day and said I need to be paying $750. And I didn't really have a proper tenancy agreement, and I looked through it and I said, oh, can we get something in writing? And he was like, oh. So in the end, I wrote a tenancy agreement out from off the internet and I got it all signed. But then he went, if you're not going to pay the extra £250 a month, then you're going to have to move out. And I was like, well, you're going to have to give me 4 weeks. I can't just move out. I've got nowhere to go. And I think he thought he could just throw me out there and then. Yeah. And he said, I've got someone that's going to move in that's going to pay £700-800 a month. So I went and got the 10, and I thought maybe this will be the way I can go for a few months or so, and it was still summer a few months back when I became homeless. So, I got the 10 and I got all the cooking equipment and what have you from the money I got from some of the jobs I did. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna go and be a free spirit for a bit, and I'm gonna have to just do my own thing. And you know what, it was the biggest mental relief to be able to have my own space. I mean, that was so liberating, absolutely.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Bev Turner. Thank you for joining us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You go.
Yeah, welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Ellie and Anne this morning.
Now, the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, has said he's going to work to improve safety for Brits travelling abroad for cosmetic procedures. It's in the wake of several deaths.
Yeah, and if we've just heard about the deaths, there's an awful lot more as well. Wes Streeting has said his strong advice to British travellers seeking, for instance, Brazilian butt lifts or tummy tucks or lots of other cosmetic treatments. He says you've got to think carefully, really carefully, before taking up offers that sound too good to be true.
Well, let's speak now to leading surgeon Alex Caridas, who joins us now. Good to see you this morning, Alex. And what do you make of the Health Secretary's intervention here? I mean, it sounds like common sense, doesn't it? Don't take up offers that look too good to be true.
Well, yes. I mean, the thing is, I suppose he stopped short of actually banning them, saying that really you shouldn't be going altogether, and tried to sort of make, having surgery abroad is not like a package holiday. It's not like buying a toaster. It's serious stuff, and there are possible repercussions that could go along with this. There's a recovery. There's a lot of support that's necessary in order to get you through the surgery. So, you have to think about all these things before thinking that, I'm just going to go abroad and have some surgery.
And it's not just the staying abroad and the period of time you're spending there. If you've had surgery, probably quite major surgery, for instance, a Brazilian butt lift would be, are you safe to get on an aeroplane, for instance, for a while afterwards? And then what if something hurts, develops complications, needs to be readdressed? You're then just sort of presumably throwing yourself on the National Health Service.
Well, exactly, and it's all about this service and after any surgery. The actual surgical procedure is just one sort of point in that whole timeline. It's all the after support that's really necessary, and you simply don't get it when you hop back on a plane and leave leave the place where you had the surgery. And the other problem is, of course, there isn't any comeback once you have left. If there's a problem, they'll say, well, they say go see a doctor there. I can't do anything for you from afar. So, you're left in the lurch, really.
Have you come across patients in your clinic that have gone abroad for surgery and have had complications or have suffered botched jobs?
I don't think that there's a surgeon in this country who hasn't actually sort of encountered a patient who's been operated abroad and had subsequent problems. It's quite sort of quite frequent. We see this, and people are, I suppose, lured into the fact that, oh, this is quite cheap and perhaps cheerful, and so I'll go have it done. But the thing is, the reality, listen, there are good and bad surgeons all over the world, and the good surgeons know their worth, and they're not going to be cheap, even in Turkey, okay, or anywhere else, if you want to call that, anywhere else abroad. They will charge accordingly. So when you have something that's so cheap and appealing, you have to question it. Why is it so cheap? Are they just trying to get my money and sort of have a sort of slapdash surgery and send me off again?
That's an interesting.
You have to ask themselves questions.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. We tend to think, or certainly the way it's marketed to us, is that it's cheaper simply because it's in a different country.
Yes.
But the point you're making there is that it may be cheaper because it's not. If you lived in that country, you may not go to that person for the surgery. They're not necessarily the best surgeons that country can produce, I think is what we're saying.
No. Exactly right. Exactly right.
Do you think, would you support a ban on British people going abroad for cosmetic surgery?
I think a lot of us surgeons here in this country would probably, support that, but I think it's very hard to implement it. I mean, how do you sort of put that into practice and say, people, you can't have surgery? I think it's really hard in a democratic society to do that. But I think they need to stress the point how important these decisions are, and not to be taken lightly, and not to just think, oh well, hop on a plane and have my operation elsewhere. You have to drill home that these are really potentially serious procedures that could have sort of possible outcomes that are not favorable, and so you need to have all the support and all the facilities necessary behind you in order to offer this should you need it.
And the other thing I was wondering is if we're saying that the way it's marketed may be slightly misleading, the idea if it's too cheap to be true, then it's too cheap to be true. But what about the way we market the same sort of surgery in this country? It is, there's no doubt, it is quite forcibly marketed, isn't it? Are we actually charging too much?
Well, listen, at the end of the day, as I sort of intimated before, is that, every sort of practitioner, I suppose, charges what they feel that they are worth. And, it's true that the costs are more expensive in this country, as opposed to sort of other areas, in the world. That's just the way it is. But a lot of the reasons are because, we are heavily regulated. Well, at least surgeons are. Obviously, there's non-surgical, which is a whole different kettle of fish, and we won't go down that. But there's a lot of sort of backstops that need to be put in place, to secure patients' health and make sure that everybody is covered appropriately. And these are costs that a lot of surgeons and practitioners elsewhere in the world just don't have. And so hence, therefore, I suppose they don't. It doesn't appeal. It doesn't seem as expensive over there. But again, though, as I said, there are very, very good surgeons who charge appropriately, even abroad.
Mm-hmm. What message would you give to people who are watching and listening this morning and have seriously been considering going abroad for cosmetic surgery?
Well, what I usually tell them is this: cosmetic surgery is not an emergency operation. In other words, you don't need to have it right now, right here. So if, for example, you know of a surgeon or a practitioner who's very, very good in this country, but perhaps he's slightly out of your budget, just save. Don't skimp. Don't cut corners and suddenly go somewhere else because you want to have it done now. You could have it done in 6 months' time, a year, or maybe even 2 years' time. It's not the end of the world, but at least that's a better bet than just hopping on a plane, going somewhere, and having surgery that potentially won't give you what you want, or even worse, could leave you with permanent problems.
Yeah, good advice.
Yeah, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I have a friend who comes from an Eastern European country, and she says she is appalled. She lived here quite a long time. She's appalled by the high price of dentistry in this country. She said,
really?
We have fabulous dentists back home. She flies back home for dentistry, but then it's not because it's being marketed to her as cheap and cheerful. It's because she comes from there, and so she knows the family dentists. And she said, they will often do a brilliant job. She said, our dentists are trained particularly well. They'll do the same job for half the price that our
Really?
dentists charge, yeah. So, but again, that's not because she's just responding to an advert or something. She knows.
She actually knows her stuff, and she's got the knowledge, and she's done her research.
That's the sort of recommendation you want, isn't it?
That's what you need.
Yeah.
I mean, how much research and knowledge can you truly have of a Turkish surgeon, for example, from here in the UK? And you wouldn't really want to run that risk, would you?
No, and you'd have to take people
do.
with you. I mean, that's the other expense.
Yeah.
I don't think you should ever go on your own. You need to take somebody trusted with you. And then you need to build into your visit what happens if things go wrong.
Yeah, and recovery time.
Yeah. All sorts of things, and I think the way some of these things are advertised, they just don't go into the pros and cons enough.
Yeah. And it's worth remembering, I mean, the Foreign Office data shows 6 British people died in Turkey in 2023. And 28 British people have died in Turkey since 2019. I mean,
why do you want a Brazilian butt lift anyway, for heaven's sake?
Go to the gym. That would
There
be
you
the
go.
answer.
It's cheaper.
Anyway.
Marginally cheaper.
Let us know what you think. gbnews.com/you'll say. Do stay with us. Aidan's going to be here shortly with all the sport. That's next.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
What about train Wi-Fi? The Times. It's so funny the Times did this story because I was on the train yesterday trying to do some work and connecting to the Wi-Fi, and it happens all the time. It just doesn't work. It's pathetic. And then I opened the Times and they've done a massive investigation. Loads of different rail routes from north to south.
Was that the James Bond thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
What's
I think, well, that passenger got through, well, almost got through one episode of one James Bond
film.
movie in 8 hours.
But you know, it's interesting. We call it train Wi-Fi, but it isn't. It's just really a SIM card on a train, really. So if your own phone's not going to get signal, why would we assume that the train's going to have signal? It just doesn't work like that. Unless you're in Japan or South Korea, whose infrastructure is infinitely better than ours, you're just not going to get signal. You have to download those films way before you get on
There is technology that can help with that. You know, there really is. If they found ways to put it underground, they can get it on ground and get you going. I definitely think, you know, with the price that we're paying for these tickets, they can get the Wi-Fi going. There is technology.
That's why it's so frustrating, isn't
Call
it?
Elon, get a Starlink. Let's go.
If you're a passenger paying hundreds of pounds for a season ticket or whatever you call it, and you commute to work every single day, and you're paying all this money, and you can't.
It's so expensive. You'd expect Wi-Fi at the basic. Yeah, exactly.
But it happens with phone signal as well. I'll be walking down London in Park Lane or somewhere else or down on the south coast. I just don't have phone signal, and I think to myself, what on earth is going on?
Doesn't it feel like 5G's made it worse, though?
Yeah.
Because I feel like 4G, that didn't happen so much, but 5G just feels like...
Yeah, and then I always get this little E in the top corner of my phone, and I don't get any signal. I think it's got worse over the past couple of years. Yeah, especially with 5G. I agree with that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, there was a big fight overnight. Let's find out who won. Aidan McGee joins us.
Yeah, Jake Paul. He was the man who prevailed on a unanimous points decision. Sorry, I'm eating a sweet.
He's eating a sweet for a very important reason.
Yes, blood sugar levels. We don't want you going hypo.
No, certainly not. Certainly not. I'll start talking nonsense.
So we do need to be careful. You're right.
We'll shut you down.
I'm fine. Yeah, don't worry. I'll shut myself down.
So Jake Paul won.
Yeah, a unanimous decision. Look, he's come through the YouTuber route. It's not the conventional route for a boxer to come through, but he's getting the numbers, and that's what's important. There's a market for this thing. And he's fighting, well, he fought Mike Tyson, a legend in boxing, it has to be said, one of the greatest ever fighters. He has so much power and so much clout when he was younger, but he hasn't lifted a heavyweight belt since before Jake Paul was born. Don't forget, he's 27, Jake Paul, 58 is how old Mike Tyson is. And look, when they got into the ring, I thought he looked tired and worn out, actually, after about 2 rounds, Tyson. It was the mobility and that wasn't there. It was the footwork that wasn't there. And he just struggled to get around the ring. So as long as you keep out of the way of his reach, then you're not going to get hit. Jake Paul is not a superlative boxer. He really isn't. He's not outstanding at all. He just flings his arms around. There doesn't seem to be much strategy in what he tries to do. But he didn't need to engage in that. He just needs to stand off. And that meant it wasn't a particularly interesting fight. It was 8 rounds of 2 minutes. But you and I logged on to the last few minutes.
Yeah.
It was accessible. It took us 10 seconds to log on and see
Yes.
That was the key.
Wasn't it?
All right, it's an ungodly hour. But it didn't take long for us to actually get moving pictures of the fight.
But I must say, I don't know very much about boxing at all, but by then, which was the last couple of rounds, wasn't it, we watched, there wasn't much going on. You know, it was a bit boring.
There wasn't that much going on in the first couple of rounds, actually. Yeah, I mean, look, if you're going in there and you're seeing 16 minutes worth of action, I mean, there's no guarantee it goes the distance anyway. I think Tyson will be quite reasonably chuffed that he went the distance. Did you think, from the outside looking in, did you think it was choreographed? Because I look back on it now, I've watched bits of it back. I'm not sure.
There is chatter of that online, actually. Do you think that might have happened?
I do think it might have happened, Ellie. Yeah, I just think that, you can't really justify that fight not going the distance when you're only actually seeing 16 minutes of action in play. So, look, we will probably never know. But I think that both boxers are safe. That's the main thing. And the purses as well. I mean, £15.4 million. That means Tyson's earned just under £1 million a minute.
Oh, wow.
Contribution
Put it like that, yeah.
Fight,
It's interesting. A lot of viewers get in touch. As a lot of people say, well, for that £1 million, I'd put myself in the ring up against Mike Tyson. The point is, it doesn't look as though it's very, very energetic and really hard, but it is.
It is. And look, you look at it was intriguing. Earlier in the week, I was having a discussion with Ellie a minute ago. Earlier in the week, I just thought that, maybe Jake Paul will win. And then later on, I thought, no, the expertise will win out here. And I mean, we never really saw either of that, really. To be honest with you, I mean, we didn't see either fighter at their best. We don't really know what Jake Paul's best is. But the fact is, he's bringing a new audience to boxing. It doesn't necessarily translate that a youthful audience will stay with it over the long run, but we'll see if that will happen. Yeah. And boxing has caused this problem itself. There's no question about that. They're not putting on the big fights that everyone wants to see, and so there's a vacuum. Yeah. And someone fills it. And as we've seen today, 50 million. Global TV audience, there is a market for this, and those numbers there, £31.1 million is what Jake Paul went out of this. There'll be a queue of fighters, probably has-beens as well, who want to fight him and get a fight on. And if that's more interesting than the real event, that's worrying for the sport.
And what about Mike Tyson? Do you think that's the end of him now? Will he hang up his boxing gloves?
It's about time, certainly, but he's not skint anymore, that's for sure. I don't think we'll ever see a return to the days where he buys 20 sports cars in one day because he's had a bit of a bad day.
Is Mike Tyson the reason Tyson Fury is called Tyson?
Yes. Yeah, he was a hero to so many people.
He was a hero, yeah, a long time ago.
When he got beaten by James Buster Douglas in February 11th, 1990, I'll never forget it. That shook the world. And don't forget, there wasn't saturation of media coverage. I went out to play with my mate, Daniel, and he said to me, Tyson lost overnight. And I went, no, you're lying. But there was no way of checking instantaneously whether he had. We had to wait until later in the day to find out what actually transpired. He was stopped in 10 rounds. It was absolutely astonishing. And so he was a vicious fighter in the ring. He really was, Ellie. He was. I mean, one of the best ever, if not the best.
Oh
gosh, well there you are.
Should we have a very brief look, a whip round at the other sports?
Yes, why not? Autumn internationals last night in rugby. Ireland prevailing over Argentina 22-19. Made hard work of that. England in action today at 20-6 against South Africa at Twickenham. Looking for an improvement in performances there. In the football, Scotland first win in 10 matches last night with a late win over Croatia. John McGinn scoring 4 minutes from time. England in action tomorrow against the Republic of Ireland. Who will you be supporting, Ellie? England, Republic of Ireland?
Oh, tough one.
It's tough.
My house will be Republic of Ireland. I might have to go England.
I might just go out.
What are you going to do?
Yes, go out. Yeah, exactly. And tennis, very briefly. Emma Raducanu's got through the first round of the Billie Jean King
she's into the
Cup.
quarterfinals. Katie Bolter's involved as well. It's a team event in Germany, the Billie Jean King Cup. Hopefully, we've said this a few times, just maybe some green shoots of recovery in terms of her career, getting back on track, but it's been 3 and a bit years now. And time, we can't keep saying it forever, can we?
No, always to be hoped that, she'll come through.
What she achieved was extraordinary, and that's why people cling to that hope, because it was unbelievable.
And it's so much at the beginning of her career. She's had to live up to it ever since.
I know.
That's been...
Well, some of it's her own doing. She keeps changing her coach. You're not going to continue as you go.
Absolutely. But I'm not going to say a controversial word about her.
No.
I've done that before.
I know.
OK.
I was in the eye of the storm.
Yeah, really, were you? Right. It's very nearly... it's coming up to 8:45 already. My goodness. Do stay with us. Papers next.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Penelope's, which is situated in the sophisticated Hotel Armano in Covent Garden, delivers punchy dishes from the executive chef Fez Ozalgan. London-born, she's of Turkish Cypriot heritage, and at the tender age of 16, she enrolled at catering college. So, it's lovely to see you, Fez. Welcome to the programme.
Thank you.
So you're now in a very prestigious position. I'm always impressed that in the world of chefing, it's possible to get to very senior positions quite young, if you're good enough. Talent is rewarded, is it not?
Definitely, yeah. It does take a lot of hard work, for sure. But, yes.
When did you know that you wanted to be a chef?
Honestly, because my parents have a cafe in Barking. And I used to go there when I was younger, in school holidays and weekends to help them. And actually, I'll be honest, I just used to really admire everyone calling my dad chef, and that's what I wanted.
And what about your food inspirations? Because I believe the food that you produce now is what? Mediterranean influenced and also to some extent Middle East influenced?
Yeah, and Spanish as well at Penelope's, yeah. So our concept at Penelope's, our CEO, Ariel, he is Israeli, but he grew up in Marbella. So,
These are the great influences.
Yeah.
What have you brought here today?
OK, so we have our sea bream tartare, which is a really good inspiration of both Spanish and Israeli. It's marinated with harissa, and it's served with a really nice gazpacho sauce, caviar on top.
I wonder whether the camera can see that. It is the most gorgeous coloured sauce on top of my sea bream tartare. That's marvellous.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello again. We're going through the papers now with Stephanie Tecci and Kevin Schofield. And Kevin, you found this amazing story that seemed to almost pass us by.
Yeah.
The National Lottery is 30 years old.
Unbelievable.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. I mean, to those of us who are old enough to remember when it launched, I mean, you can't believe it's 30 years.
No.
I cannot believe it. It was huge.
I think I'm...
Well, you're not. Well, you're not. I know that.
Why are you laughing so heartily?
I was 8 when it was launched, so, you know.
I remember the first week, and my eldest son bought a scratch card, first week of it, and he won £200.
Ooh.
Wow,
This
this
is a doddle.
National Lottery is good. So from there on, we took part in it, and nobody ever wanted to be.
It's so exciting. So it used to be on a Saturday night, the draw.
Yeah.
everyone
thing,
watched.
didn't it?
A big show.
But since then, it has created 7,200 millionaires.
Oh, wow.
It's not bad.
I thought there'd be more, to be fair.
But it's also donated £49 billion for good causes.
That's incredible.
Which, you know, is
So
great.
many
Think about
sporting
things
events.
like
Amazing. National
TV at the Olympics rely very heavily on
It's one of the reasons why we do so well at the Olympics, isn't it? It's all
Exactly.
national lottery funding.
So John Major, he was the Prime Minister at the time when it was launched, and he's written a piece in here, and he makes a good point. You know, you think about where all that money has gone. What would Britain look like if that money hadn't been spent? You know, all these local charity organisations, community groups that got funding boosts as a result of it. And I think overall it's been a pretty good...
Have you ever won anything on it?
I mean, I might have won a tenner or something.
Yeah.
Ever?
I've only played the lottery twice, but no, I didn't win anything. I did dream of lottery numbers once, and I'm just annoyed that I didn't wake up and put them down on
Steph,
paper.
that was silly.
It was my only chance to become a millionaire.
Yeah.
You used to hear the
I mean, you can't win it if you're not in it.
I
That's the
know, but
point.
I think it's quite... There are some people who go to the other end, or the extreme, where they spend a lot of money on lottery and all these scratch cards, and they don't win it, and that's money you could use elsewhere.
The chances, that, if you believe in statistics, the chances are just so remote of you ever winning. But people do.
It's all luck of the draw.
Yeah.
It's 14... Well, it was 14 million to 1 at first, because there was only 49 numbers, but then they increased it to 59, which I didn't realise, which then made it 45 million to 1 that you would win the jackpot. So
Oh, the odds aren't in your favour, are they?
the odds are definitely not in your favour.
But people do win.
Oh, well, yes.
Well, that's the thing. It could be.
I know.
That was always
a million.
It could be.
I have interviewed over the years. I've interviewed so many lottery winners who say, you know, the first thing you get is you suspect maybe you've won something because you've just watched it or you've heard it, and then you get a call from. Is it still
Camelot?
Camelot, yeah. You get a call from them, and they verify it. So by now you're shaking and you don't know who to tell and you don't know what to do. And they say, right, you are probably shaking and you don't know who to tell or what to do. We will now send one of our advisors.
Yes, you need that.
And they said that they do that. And I interviewed the advisor as well, and she said it's the most brilliant job she's ever had. She's obviously highly trained in law as much as anything else and public relations. But she said when you actually arrive at their doorstep, they already know, but you're the one who's going to enable it and make it happen for them. And she said it's the best job she's ever had.
Oh, isn't that great?
Changed someone's life, hasn't it?
Yes, absolutely. But
for the better,
they need help and guidance. Because
you
the
need
natural
so much
instinct
good advice.
is to go, wee!
Well, you know,
spend.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but there has been some cases of people who've gone bankrupt after winning the lottery, where they lose everything because you can get all this big sum of money, but you're just not prepared to financially manage it.
And
get exploited, you know. You get absolutely inundated with begging letters and family members, long lost friends suddenly.
But it is one of those lovely little dreams you can have occasionally.
Yeah.
You know, you're in the car, sitting, I don't know, you're just sort of thinking, what would I do if? And it is one of those nice little moments.
What would you do if you won the lottery?
Oh, I've got it all terribly well worked out. But no, I clearly haven't, but I keep thinking it through. You've got to figure out who you tell, and then depending on the amount of money, because that couple we were reading about earlier won 115 million on the Euro
Gave half of it
lottery.
away.
Yeah, they immediately gave, they decided which family and friends they wanted to help. And they obviously helped that family and friends big time because they gave away 60 million. But wouldn't you want to do that?
Yeah.
You'd have to write a little list of the people who really needed to be given help.
Yeah, before you then thought about how you could fit yourself.
And then escape from the country.
But one of the things I would love to do, I would love to set up a scholarship fund.
Yeah,
one of those things that helps kids out of one and gives them a scholarship into something, where you make a difference to kids' lives.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Good way of doing it.
Kevin, what would you do with your millions?
Oh, God. You want to ask me that. How can you top that, though?
I know.
That's good. That's good. She's giving back.
Yeah,
to the
but I
community.
thought it through
What are you doing?
as well. If you set up a trust fund or a charity like this couple did, actually, then you say to your own children, all right, you may think I ought to just give you 5 million or something, but actually I think you should earn it. If you need a job working in the trust fund, then you can earn a blinking good salary.
That would be
but you've got to earn it, otherwise you're just throwing money, and we all know that
you won't appreciate it.
You could waste their lives.
You wouldn't just set them up for life, because then that is...
It's not good for you, is it?
But what you could hopefully try and set them up for life with is a job.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Not just
Maybe
here's
that's
a
goodwill
lot
job.
of money away and spend it. Yeah.
Steph?
Oh, I don't know what I would do.
You'd go away,
I think I was just thinking that I think I would go on a 2-year world tour. But I would want to set up like a journalism fund as well, actually.
Oh, look, she's inspiring us all out, Diamond.
Mini Stephs and Anns and Ellies and Kevin.
And Kevin, you still haven't come up with an answer now. Should we look at this incredible story in the Mail Online that Anne was mentioning earlier? This is a man who underwent the world's first face and double hand transplant.
Yeah, oh, it's so heartwarming, this story. At the age of 26 and 28, Joe DeMio from New Jersey, he fell asleep at the wheel after a night shift and he crashed onto the curb and his car went up into flames and the only reason he survived is because 2 passers-by managed to get him from the wreck. But he was left with 80% burns on his body and on his hand. 20 reconstructive surgeries just to be...
I mean, basically his face melted away.
Everything.
Poor man.
And thanks to a donor, anonymous donor...
from Delaware.
He was able to have a face transplant.
Yeah.
Which is astonishing. Now, clearly, he's still incredibly swollen.
He is.
Which makes him look quite difficult to look at. But you can see the eyes, nose, mouth is beginning to really take the form of a proper...
There was only a 6% chance of this surgery going right, so clearly he had luck on side. But what has been so sweet about this is that a woman called Jessica saw his story and started messaging him, and the lady we saw in the picture, they actually got married. He's proposed to her, and she said she fell in love with him just by the way he spoke, and it just goes to show it's more than looks sometimes.
Wouldn't you love to know from a surgeon, if you transplant somebody else's face on your, basically, skull, does that face take on the shape of your original face? Because obviously the structure underneath is still there. I don't know.
Maybe that's why he's still so...
He's very, very swollen, obviously, but that's reasonable.
He must just be happy to have a face.
It's just amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible what they can do now, isn't it?
Yeah.
And thanks to the generosity of some anonymous donor who thought to say, all right, you can use my body.
Yeah,
if necessary.
Incredible, isn't it?
It is.
Kevin, Stephanie, it's been so good to see you this morning. It's been fun, hasn't it? It's been lovely going through the papers with you. Thank you very much.
But we still haven't learned properly how to boil an egg.
No.
But we will. We're going to manage it by the end of the morning. Let's have a look at the weather now for you.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. The weather's on the change. It's been a very dry November so far, but most of us will see some rain as we go through the next 24 hours and turning colder across northern Britain, very gusty across northern Scotland. Plenty of showers packing in here. Those showers will have some snow mixed in over the hills. A zone of wetter weather over northern England, dull and damp start here. That'll track slowly southwards, bringing some damp weather to Wales, the Midlands, eventually East Anglia and the southeast, although the far south probably staying dry until quite late on. Still quite mild here, but colder air is moving in, so although we'll see some sunny spells, it will feel colder, particularly when you add that wind on, which will be very lively across the Northern Isles, staying very blustery here through the afternoon and into the evening. More showers coming in here as well. Mostly of rain at lower levels, but some sleet and snow and hail thrown in for good measure. Certainly snow on the highlands of Scotland as the showers pack in here, but much of eastern and southern Scotland staying dry and bright, and the showers certainly further south at low levels will be of rain. This is the line of rain which will track its way south through the rest of today. Again, nothing too heavy, but because it has been so dry, it'll be the first rain many of us have seen for a while. It does scoot away down across the English Channel, and behind that the colder air seeps into all parts of the UK. Staying pretty gusty across the far northeast. Elsewhere the wind's a little lighter, and so tumbling temperatures. Pockets of frost certainly likely over northeast England, central and eastern Scotland, and further south temperatures well down into single figures. So a fresher, colder feel for many on Sunday, but a bright start for eastern England, southern England. Plenty of sunshine here. We are looking at wetter weather coming into Northern Ireland. More showers in northern Scotland with some snow on the hills. And as this wet weather comes in across southern Scotland, northern England, it could provide some snow on Sunday evening. There are Met Office warnings in place for wintry weather next week.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
This is the final one. Good luck.
This is GB News. Britain's news channel.
Tell us about this film, because it's obviously come from your own experiences.
We wanted to create something for the entertainment industry that wasn't just another kind of dull documentary